fuck the EU.
OMG, OMG, OMG.
All right. Everybody settle down. It's just about showtime. Overtime for the showtime. Wop, 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 wop. Activate bookmarks bar. Stand by. Yeah, the Ryzen is looking good, although I do have to wait for the hype to fade a bit before I'm gonna really get into it, but it looks good. Unfilter time! What is this here? 246, is that right? 2. I can't remember, let's find out. 226. Unfilter. 226. Wop, pop, 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 pop. Yeep. Yeep. Herp, derpa, derpa, derp, derpa, derpa, derp, derp, derp. Derp, derpa, derp, 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 derpa, derp, 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 derpa, derp, derp. All right. So we got to pick our supporters show intro song. What should we do here? Then we got to get going. Mr. Ronald Jenkins, Mr. Ronald Jenkins, what do you have for us, Ronald Jenkins? What do we have? I'll go with that one. It's been a little while since we've done early. All right. Okay, Cherub, you can start. You can begin your process of banging and suggesting, so that way we can name this beast. All right, here we go. It's overtime time. Get ready for yourselves.
No. Hey.
Hey, where are you going? The show's not over. In fact, some might say it's just beginning. It's overtime time. It's time for overtime. Brought to you by patreon.com/unfilter. It's dedicated to you guys. We got more stuff to get into, more news to talk about, more shenanigans to feature, and of course, oh Nancy. Oh my! So let's kick things off by thanking our new patrons that signed up since our last episode. Adam, John, Edward, Jeremy, Christian, Juma, Aaron, Kristen, Ryan, Lane, Drew, Tristan, Thomas, Arjo, Ryan, Arjan, John, Cubicle Nate, Dirt, and William P. Oh! Thank you for supporting us. Get over to patreon.com/unfilter and go check out last week's patron exclusive episode, where we really dig into the leaks that the intelligence agency's been putting out there go after Trump. It's all broken down in that episode, and it's just for our supporters. In fact, once you sign up, you get access to all of the past supporter show. We usually just do a couple of them a year, just maybe more than a couple. We do a handful. We do a handful a year of the supporter shows, and you get access to all of them once you sign up at patreon.com/unfilter. So I've been really enjoying a new segment here in Overtime to sort of loosen us up, to kick things off. It's the Oh Nancy segment. Now, I've been expanding Oh Nancy to also include Maxine Waters. I realize her name is not Nancy. I get that. But her, Maxine, and Nancy are essentially two peas in one very confused pod. And so where one goes, the other is usually close behind. So let's start off, though, with Maxine, who went on an unhinged tirade against the Trump team, ending by calling them a bunch of scumbags. But that wasn't actually my favorite part.
The fact that 4 different people connected to the campaign had spoken to Russian senior intelligence officials. Do you believe that when Reince Priebus says that?
Well, let me just say this. Mike Priebus has...
Mike? Did she say Mike? Okay.
Let me just say this. Mike Priebus...
She did say Mike. His name is Rance, darling.
Has been trying to clean up for Donald Trump for far too long. He's the one that stuck with him all during the campaign when he was making outrageous statements, when he was basically lying. And so his time is going to run out. He can't continue to try to defend this president.
It's actually not true in a sense. Rance at one point was sort of behind the anybody but Trump, sort of secretly behind the scenes. For a long time, Rance tried to work against Trump. And then it wasn't towards the end when it looked like it was a lock that Trump was going to win that Rance was like, all right, well, if this is going to be our guy, I got to make sure he follows establishment policies.
Who is entangled with this Kremlin.
Now, you see, hold on. Now, she's about to drop a nice deuce a meme for you. And watch how Maxine here looks down at her notes before she drops a good one. You see right there? That's good old Maxine reading note cards. She's got note cards in her lap. This is not off the top of her head.
Is entangled with this Kremlin clan of his.
Oh, the Kremlin clan! The Kremlin clan, that's good.
With this Kremlin clan of his, while they are all seeking really to get rid of these sanctions that are, placed on Russia, because all of them are connected to the oil and gas industry.
Right.
Just take a look at this. Take a look at...
now she's just going full on notes. She's got the glasses on. She's like looking down. You can even hear her moving the paper. She's full on just, I'm all about the notes.
Take a look at, of course, Michael Flynn, long history of ties to the Russian government, including a paid speech at a party for RT. Paul Manafort, Trump's former campaign manager, paid lobbyist for Viktor Yanukovych, the pro-Russian politician in Ukraine.
This is McCarthyism all over again, isn't it? I mean, here it is again. Look at this. You just have any connections to Russia at all, and you're guilty. There's no process, there's no analysis, there's no investigations. You talk to a Russian, if they have any connection to the government, which if they're any Russian of influence, they would because of the way the government's structured there, you're immediately guilty.
Who fled to Russia in 2014.
Right.
Carter Page, one of Trump's foreign policy advisors during his campaign, frequent guests on Russian state media, held a personal stake in Russian oil and gas interests. Roger Stone, who's worked in the Ukraine, Wilbur Ross.
Do you hear the guy in the background, Chris? He's starting to just kind of laugh at her a little bit.
Interest. Roger Stone, who's worked in the Ukraine, Wilbur Ross, Trump's nominee for Secretary of Commerce, was a business partner of Viktor Veselkoberg, a Russian oligarch and Putin ally, in a major financial project involving the Bank of Cyprus, and of course Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, who was the one who negotiated the multi-billion-dollar drilling contract with Putin, where they were going to drill in the Arctic, and it has been stopped because of the sanctions that were placed on by Obama. And I want to tell you, I believe that Tillerson's real job is to get in here and get those sanctions lifted. Woo! But all of them want them lifted because this this Kremlin clan is all about getting the oil and gas.
Even though she just said it, she had to look down at the notes again.
Money and doing the drilling, and they need this president.
She doesn't even stop there. She goes on to slam them for all kinds of things. She slams them for being just a group of dishonest. She kind of implies gangsters, mobsters. Woo! She's fired up, guys. She's fired up. And then she's got one more. There's strong claims, or she's got claims that there's strong ties between Trump
You
and
have
Ukraine.
gone all the way there, talking and using the I word with Donald Trump about impeachment. Do you stand by that? And what would he be impeached for, in your view?
Well, yes, I have led in talking about
The first month into his presidency. The first month into his presidency.
impeachment. And some people say, well, it's too early for that. It's never too early if you understand how dangerous this man really is. I do believe that there is a connection between the Ukraine and Donald Trump and, of course, Russia.
What?
I think that
It was Obama's administration and State Department that toppled over their government, or at least assisted with that. That's an incredible statement to make.
he colluded.
He colluded
with Putin,
with the Putin.
during the election.
He colluded with the Putin.
Connection between the Ukraine and Donald Trump and, of course, Russia.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
he colluded with Putin during the election and that hacking and everything that took place. I think that it's there. We just have to dig deeper, do the investigation, and find it.
All right, there
wanna
you
give,
go. Strongly sourced and very credible claims by Maxine Waters. And Nancy Pelosi now takes the microphone. Well, sort of. Nancy Pelosi has microphone problems again.
Chairman Brady, as chairman of the Ways and Means Committee and chairman of the Joint Committee on Taxation, is empowered to demand President Trump's tax returns from the Secretary of the Treasury. All he has to do is ask and hold a committee vote to make those tax returns public. We're calling on, thank you, we're calling on the,
Somebody walks up and one of her assistants or aides or something adjust the microphone for her.
do you want me to start all over? Mr. President, do you want me to start all over? What do the Russians have on you, politically, financially, or personally?
What? This is
The process is the chairman of, imagine that the privilege only goes to the chairman to make the request, but then the committee can vote to make the tax returns public.
I was taking notes. I was taking notes. I was taking notes.
And then this is my favorite moment. Nancy Pelosi goes to the stage. She's talking about the truth, which she's fired up. She's passionate about why they're taking this fight, why they're hashtag fighting for all. She is the crusader of the truth. Except for she momentarily forgets what the truth is, which seems a little odd if you're all fired up about the truth.
They said they can't be caught up in, what is it, rummaging. This isn't rummaging. This is truth.
Yes, it is.
And consequences.
Oh.
The truth.
What? What? What is it, Nancy? The truth is what, Nancy? The truth. I'm all fired up. We're doing this.
The truth is the American people have a right to know the truth. We see the consequences that can be dangerous to our national security.
Oh, Nancy, you're a little dangerous, I think, and I worry about your national security. But that did get me all ready for the overtime. That felt good. Fired up. Ready to go. Speaking of fighting for you, the media is fighting for you. And this week, they took to the airwaves to tell you about it.
Been no shortage of outrage over the president's statements on the press. But I'd like to close with a little perspective. There is nothing new about a president of the United States criticizing or even vilifying the press. Even Thomas Jefferson, the same Thomas Jefferson who wrote the Declaration of Independence and who 10 years after that wrote, "Our liberty depends on freedom of the press," Even Thomas Jefferson, when he was a few years into his own presidency, was so upset with what was being written about his administration that he flatly declared, "Nothing can now be believed that is seen in a newspaper."
So this is ABC's John Karl. Now, John Karl is the guy who is in the White House press pool asking questions to Spicy Sean or to Trump. He's the guy that often gets looked over. He's also one of these individuals who thinks he's the biggest dog in the room. And he thinks he's like one of the best reporters. He's all in, but he doesn't get a good platform. So finally this weekend, he got to play substitute teacher. So he's filling in on a big boy TV show, one of the Sunday shows this week with George. But George had to take the weekend off to go help out the Clinton Foundation. So here we have John Karl sitting in, and he's going to take his time that he finally gets on This Week with George Stephanopoulos. He's going to take his time to tell it like it is and tell that the American people depend on a free press for their democracy.
Teddy Roosevelt, who now is next to Jefferson on Mount Rushmore, once wrote, "To announce there must be no criticism of the president or that we are to stand with the president, right or wrong, is not only unpatriotic and servile, but is morally treasonable to the American public." I couldn't agree more. But I also know that TR wrote that nearly a decade after he left office. When he was still in the White House, he coined the term muckrakers to denounce investigative journalists who he felt were so obsessed with the negative that they were missing the good in the world, including the good he was doing as president. Such negativity in the press, Roosevelt said, is one of the most potent forms of evil. And that brings me to President Donald Trump, who has taken presidential criticism of the news media to yet another level. In a way, it surprised me. The Donald Trump I knew as a young reporter in New York was nothing if not media friendly. And for most of the past Republican primary, he was the most accessible major candidate. No one else was even close. At Thursday's press conference, we saw flashes of that. 17 reporters called on, many that he knew would ask tough questions. But now the president has declared the press the enemy of the American people. I've reported in countries where leaders not only complain about a critical press, but also try to shut it down.
I actually think that in some regards, Trump is right. I'm all for a combative press and a press that doesn't take any word of the government at face value. Of course, this same press that is speaking right now is more than happy to take anything the intelligence agencies say at face value. But apparently when it comes from one part of the government, that's okay. And when it comes from another part of the government, that's not okay. What I would like is a combative, investigative press that is consistently combative, consistently investigative. I would like a press that disseminates information to the people, not stories. Not stories that tell you about somebody's plight. I don't want that anymore. I don't want drama. I want news. I want facts. You are an enemy to the people. You are a big reason why we've gotten this far. Why they have been enabled, they being the government, have been enabled to do all of the crazy ass things they do that now have put us in this position. Where's the watchdog been? Especially these last 8 years. Where's the watchdog? And now all of a sudden John is all of a sudden a watchdog again? That shit bothers me so much. Just really, I can't get over it.
Throwing reporters in prison or worse.
Obama would have done that too. Obama cracked down on... Obama did throw journalists in jail when he first got into office.
I've seen my colleagues risk their lives and with increasing frequency lose their lives in the pursuit of the truth. We are not about to stop doing our jobs because yet another president is unhappy with what he reads or hears or sees on TV news. There is a reason the founders put freedom of the press in the very first amendment to the Constitution. As long as American democracy remains healthy, there will be reporters willing to pursue the truth, even if that means incurring the wrath of the most powerful person in the world.
Oh, you're so brave.
A free press isn't the enemy of America. It's a big part of what makes America great.
Now, I give him credit for using Trump's old slogan, but let's be honest. This man and everybody at this level of television are actors. They're not reporters. Now, he gets close. He goes and sits in that White House and asks the questions that he knows his corporate bosses want him to ask, and he gets a big paycheck for it. And he's not risking his life. He has the protection of ABC Corporation lawyers. Give me a break. Can't stand it. I can't stand it. But that was his big statement. That was his big statement. You take it as it is. I like this one. This is Jake Tapper getting all fired up.
The president today
news.
attacked the story of high-level campaign advisors having frequent communications with Russians known to U.S. intelligence. Those advisors, of course, include Michael Flynn, whom President Trump fired as his national security advisor on Monday night after Flynn was shown to have lied to the public and to the vice president about the contents of his phone call with the Russian ambassador in December.
The issue, pure and simple, came down to a matter of trust. And the president concluded that he no longer had the trust of his national security advisor.
That was White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer on Tuesday. But today, President Trump gave a quite different explanation.
Michael Flynn, General Flynn, is a wonderful man. I think he's been treated very, very unfairly by the media, as I call it, the fake media in many cases.
The media, of course, did not fire General Flynn. President Trump did. Now, what the media did do was reveal to the nation that General Flynn had lied to the country and to the Trump team, including Vice President Pence, when he claimed he never discussed Obama's sanctions on Russia with the Russian ambassador. President Trump knew this at least as early as January 26, but he did not act on this until the media revealed the truth to you and, as it turns out, to Vice President Pence, who learned about it through the media, sources say. The president reacted to this all on Twitter today. Quote, "The fake news media is going crazy with their conspiracy theories and blind hatred. MSNBC and CNN are unwatchable. Fox and Friends is great." Of course, these stories in the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, and elsewhere are not conspiracy theories. These are news stories sourced by government officials. Conspiracy theories are different. They're false. They're crackpot. They're nonsense. How do I illustrate what a conspiracy theory is? How about this one about Ted Cruz's father?
His father was with Lee Harvey Oswald prior to Oswald's being, shot. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. What?
Look at Jake doing a bit here. He's doing a Daily Show bit. Look at this. Jake doing a bit, guys.
What is this, right prior to his being shot? And nobody even brings it up.
That's a conspiracy theory. Or how about this one about President Obama?
I wish he would, because if he doesn't, it's one of the greatest scams in the history of politics and in the history period. You are not allowed to be a president if you're not born in this country.
Those are conspiracy theories. These are facts as established by former and current national security and intelligence officials, as President Trump almost seemed to simultaneously acknowledge today.
From intelligence, papers are being leaked, things are being leaked.
I really hate all of this so much. I hate that we're calling stuff that is never sourced, things that are never definitely presented. We're not seeing these leaks. We're not seeing these papers like we did in past leaks and Snowden leaks and WikiLeaks. We see the materials. We can review it ourselves. These are just vague references. The media says, well, trust us. We've been told by intelligence officials, and they're legitimate intelligence officials. They even work in the agencies. And they say the papers are very explosive. And this is now our form of proof. This is now our trusted sources. These are now our facts, as Jake likes to call them.
Former and current national security and intelligence officials, as President Trump almost seemed to simultaneously acknowledge today.
From intelligence, papers are being leaked, things are being leaked. It's criminal action, criminal act.
Now, no president likes leaks, especially ones that reflect poorly on his administration. But it's worth noting, candidate Trump's path to power was tread on a road of leaks. Leaks against Hillary Clinton. Some came from WikiLeaks.
WikiLeaks. The wonder of WikiLeaks. 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 Some new stuff in WikiLeaks.
And many of the ones about Hillary Clinton's private email server, those leaks came from the FBI. Right before Election Day, in fact, Fox News reported and then had to retract a report based on erroneous leaks that the FBI investigation into the Clinton Foundation was going to likely lead to indictments almost immediately. Now, retraction notwithstanding, candidate Trump, well, he had at it.
The FBI agents say their investigation is likely to yield an indictment.
He didn't have a problem with leaks then. It's worth pointing out, it's not a moral position if you only hold it when it applies to you.
I think I wonder if we consider it to be a difference. So let's take the leaks that the WikiLeaks, the Hillary Clinton, and the Podesta emails. Those are leaked and they're sort of dropped, right? That's just a big data drop. Sometimes it's dropped in chunks. That's how WikiLeaks did it. In fact, the Snowden leaks kind of came out in chunks too. The difference there seems to me, in the case of the Snowden leaks, it was the actual source material supplied to multiple media agencies and newspapers and whatnot, like The Guardian and the New York Times. Or WikiLeaks, where anybody can get them. But these leaks from the intelligence agencies are specifically from the intelligence person, individual, or multiple individuals, directly to a media source, an individual media source, like, say, Barbara Starr or Josh Costello or whatever they're, whoever it is. I don't think it's Jake Tapper, but you get my point. It's different in that sense, and it's intentionally done to undermine the elected president, which would appear to be a position of at least some in the intelligence agencies. This seems like a big difference. Like, this is not an apples to apples comparison. The email leaks are done as a data dump on WikiLeaks, available to the general public and any media that wants to go through it. These leaks about, say, Flynn are very targeted about a specific high-level administration official to a specific one or two media outlet individuals. I don't think these are comparable events. So I disagree with some of Jake's argument to begin with. It's different for Trump is, while he did clearly benefit from leaks, you could also say that just truth and justice, in a sense, benefited from these leaks. I'm not sure that there's any justice being served or truth being served by outing the fact that one of our national security people was having conversations with the Russian ambassador. It literally would be something Trump would have him do once he was on the job. So I feel like there is not quite an equivalency, although I still feel like we should know if he lied. If he did truly lie to Pence, and he did lie to the people, well, we should know that. The leaks weren't serving that purpose. The leaks were serving a political assassination purpose. And I think that's what's key about it. I want to talk a little more about this whole Sweden thing. You guys probably heard plenty of this. Here's a little bit of a story that'll kind of recap some of it.
Police in Sweden are investigating a riot that broke out overnight in a predominantly immigrant suburb of Stockholm. The clashes started when a police officer arrested a drug suspect and people began throwing stones. One officer fired his gun, but no one was hit. A police spokesman says some civilians who tried to stop looters were assaulted themselves. Over the weekend, you remember President Trump was criticized for referencing an interview on Fox News that cited crime significantly increasing in the wake of Muslim immigration problems in Sweden.
Yeah, let's go more into that Sweden story here. That kind of gives you some more information. So Tucker Carlson, he's put down the bow tie. Apparently more blood's flowing to his brain, and he's getting more and more interesting guests. You probably heard of Amy Horowitz here. He's the director of Sweden and refugee documentary movie that you can find out there. I was going to try to find a link for you, but I didn't get a chance. And he was asked by Tucker a few questions. I'm going to play just a bit of this, and then I want to go to another interview he did with Don Lemon, which went very different than his interview here with Tucker Carcar.
Coming on. So before you describe what you saw there, give us the overview. What is the justification within Sweden for importing this many migrants from other countries? Why are they doing it?
Well, in Sweden's own words, they consider themselves to be a humanitarian superpower, probably the only superpower that they would qualify for. So they feel it's their moral duty to open their borders to all and any refugees that want to come to them.
So you've recently spent time there. Tell me if I'm overstating this. I don't think many people in Sweden think this is working well. Is that fair to say?
No, it's not fair to say, actually. In fact, most people that you ask about the refugee crisis, they will say, because the reason why I did the whole thing to begin with, taking a step back, was that there was an absolute surge in both gun violence and rape in Sweden once they began this open door policy. So they know that this crime is happening. They can feel it. The statistics are clear. But they would refer to what is the root cause behind it and say, oh, it's just more, it happened to be more violence. It's men who are raping people, not the refugees. They'll make excuses for it. The majority of the population in Sweden still want to have an open door policy. It's confounding.
Huh, that's remarkable. Now, the statistics on the crime rise that you just referred to, there have been reports in the American press that those statistics are either closely held by the Swedish authorities or they've been manipulated by the Swedish authorities to downplay the role of migrants in those crimes. Is that true?
Well, it depends. The crime statistics are the crime statistics, and they're not closely held. They're open to the public, and they do show this incredible surge of violence. What may actually be the problem is that they oftentimes try to cover up some of these crimes. That, for example, there's been a rash of these rapes, these music festivals. And what happens is they cover up as far as they could who the perpetrators were or if actually rapes had actually occurred. Now, obviously, when you have so many people witnessing these rapes, they're difficult to do and they've come out to the public. But I think that's kind of what they're referring to, that the government has gone out of its way to try to cover up some of these problems.
That is grotesque. So to the job numbers, we had in the intro something like 160,000 asylum seekers, only 500 wound up working in Sweden. That leaves a lot of unemployed people. What are they doing and how are they living?
Oh, they live great, Tucker. I mean, it's one of the most generous, financial programs that they have in terms of the amount of money they're giving to them, the housing benefits they get, the education benefits they get, the cash benefits they get. So they have these, and what they really become are no-go zones. These are areas that cops won't even enter because it's.
And I think before he goes any further, I think this might be a reason why there's. So it depends on how you cook the numbers, but I think you could just probably get by with lower crime rates if you simply just had no-go zones that your police didn't go into. If you don't go in those zones and you don't count the crime in there, then your crime rates remain lower. So I want to play this part.
Of the amount of money they're giving to them, the housing benefits they get, the education benefits they get, the cash benefits they get. So they have these, and what they really become are no-go zones. These are areas that cops won't even enter because it's too dangerous for them. This is the policy of the National Police Authority in Sweden. So they live in these enclaves, which, by the way, are lovely. They're leafy neighborhoods. They're beautiful apartments, and they are sitting around. You're right. It's difficult to get jobs. There's too many of them. But they have tremendous benefits there, which is why so many of these migrants are going to Sweden to begin with.
Now, we know that the masochism of the West really knows no bounds at all. So I believe you when you say that it's not often people say out loud, I'm dissatisfied with this arrangement. I know Swedes, though, who at least in private will say this is a disaster. What's the social sanction for saying that out loud? Can you just say, this isn't working, or do people come down on you for saying something like that?
Oh, you can say it, but you're a racist. You're a xenophobe, right?
So this, I think, gives us a background in which to sort of think a little bit from an outsider's perspective about what's going on in Sweden. Now, who knows where this guy... well, actually, I do know, so I shouldn't say that. But so this guy goes over there. He does some investigative journalism himself. Like, he actually goes over there and figures this stuff out. He looks at the stats. Instead of taking the stats from the State Department, he takes the stats from over there, and he's getting different numbers than what the State Department puts out. Why the State Department is putting out the crime numbers for Swedes and the refugees, why the State Department is putting that information out to the press instead of getting it from Sweden, I don't understand. But apparently that's where our press gets their official numbers for the crime. So this guy says, all right, I'm not going to look at the state numbers. I'm going to go over and look at the BRA numbers. He gets a different set of numbers. He says, holy shit, I'm going to go over and I'm going to investigate this. He comes back with a very different experience than what's being reported on. That's his anecdote. That's his story. So then he goes on Tucker Carlson, he tells that stuff, and he then shows up on Don Lemon. And Don Lemon's, he's not having this. We don't do it like this on CNN.
So you made this short documentary. It was about immigrant crime in Sweden. Yeah. Tucker Carlson interviewed you about the film, talking about how the Swedish public feels about the situation. Let's watch this.
they know that this crime is happening. They can feel it. The statistics are clear, but they would refer to what is the root cause behind it and say, oh, it's just more. It happened to be more violence. It's men who are raping people, not the refugees. They'll make excuses for it. The majority of the population in Sweden still want to have an open door policy. It's confounding.
So the president sees your interview, which means you influenced him, the president of the United States, to spread, which really amounts to false information, right? How do you feel about being part of that?
Right.
I mean, the whole thing is just surreal, right? I mean, it was a Saturday night, and I get a text from somebody. I think the president just referenced you, and then I went to it and I said, I'm not sure exactly what he was talking about, but clearly it seemed to be he was intimating this interview that we had with Tucker. So yeah, it's incredible. It's surreal. Yeah. It's unfortunate that he had the misstatement, but it's been
Don's ready to
good
pounce.
for me.
Let's look at. Here's what he said. Let's watch this.
Yeah.
We've got to keep our country safe.
Yeah. That's right, everybody. I'm
scared.
scared.
Look at what's happening in Germany.
Scared.
You look at what's happening last night in
So
Sweden.
Scary.
Sweden. Who would believe this? Sweden. They took in large numbers. They're having problems like they never thought possible.
Okay, so let's talk about the numbers here.
Yeah.
Because we looked at the stats from the U.S. State Department. Here's what we learned, all right? Crime rose about 7% from 2012 to 2015. Much of that crime was nonviolent computer fraud and vandalism. In 2015, violent crime decreased slightly. There was no staggering increase. Where did you get your information, and did you look at the official number?
Yeah,
I like that. So that's the United States Department of Overseas Security Advisory Council for May 2016.
2012 to 2015. Much of that crime was nonviolent computer fraud and vandalism. In 2015, violent crime decreased slightly. There was no staggering increase. Where did you get your information, and did you look at the official number?
Yeah, from a far more accurate source, State Department. I don't know why the State Department is doing numbers for Sweden. I look at the Swedish, it's called BRA, B-R-A,
yeah, we have
which is the keeper of all stats for Sweden.
Right.
So if you look at what I call heavy crime, so I'm talking about murder, I'm talking about sexual assault. Sexual assault from 2006 to 2015 is up almost 50%. Murder between 2012 and 2016 is up, I think, almost over 80%.
Yeah.
Now, so those are the real numbers.
Yeah. Well, the real numbers, they don't show up almost 80%. I don't want to be rude, though, but
I don't know why they made a cut right here, because I would have loved to have heard what Don had to say. I do note that Don never actually shows him the data. Don looks at it and then covers it back up, but it gets, well, it gets a little spicy, a little Sean Spicy after this.
80%. I don't want to be rude, though, but are your ears and your eyes working? Because the numbers, as we're reading from BRA, right, and from the State Department, they don't show what you're saying. You're taking these numbers and you're manipulating them in the way that...
There's no manipulation.
They're right here.
I have them. I won't show them to you. I have them, though, and you can't look at them.
They're right here.
The raw numbers are up.
That says BRA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see that, right? But don't look any further. I'm going to cover that back up now.
Are up.
That says BRA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Show me the...
But if you look at, even if you look at crime here in the United States, overall, for the past decade,
crime is down.
Crime is down.
Right.
There was a spike.
Why do they talk about the United States in this context? I don't know. It just makes it more confusing.
Rape is down.
There was a spike.
Murder's down.
In 1 year.
Non-Sweden.
Right. Over time.
Non-Sweden.
That's the same thing.
No.
But it's not skyrocketing.
That's totally wrong.
Okay, let's say that you're right.
Murder is
but
not.
There
wait,
is no.
wait,
But
wait,
hold on.
okay.
You're classifying this as a skyrocket. That crime is skyrocketing. Rape. It's not a skyrocket.
So you think when rape is down in the United States and everywhere else in Western Europe, and then rape is up 50%, that's not skyrocketing?
Because of the way they classify rapes now.
Listen to me.
So this is the argument. Well, yeah, okay, yeah, the numbers are up. All right, shut up, the numbers are up. But it's because now people are complaining when they get touched, you see? So that's why the numbers are up. Maybe people are getting touched more because there's a cultural difference. I don't know.
They classify rapes now.
Listen to me. The definition was before.
If you had
those
not
numbers.
classified unwanted touching, if you're at a concert and someone touches you on any part of your body, that is now in Sweden classified as a rape.
So it is,
it was not
so it is
before.
in the United States. First of all, it's sexual assault, not rape.
But I love how Don Lemon, in any other context, would be outraged if someone were downplaying sexual assault. Outraged. Don Lemon would be outraged. He might even shut the show down like he did earlier this week. He would be outraged. But in this context, Well, that's just a little inappropriate touching. They're just grabbing him by the pee. It's no big deal.
What is
Was
and
not
so it is in the United
before.
States. First of all, it's sexual assault, not rape.
But
it's not rape, it's sexual assault.
It's sexual assault in the United States.
No,
but
it's sexual assault.
It's sexual assault in the United States. But
who do you think knows this? Who do you think has this definition figured out? The guy that did the investigative journalism and documentary, or Don Lemon? Who do you think is probably right?
Assault in the United States, but it's not sexual assault in Sweden.
Incorrect.
It is now under the rape
That's
clause.
not right. So we're mistaken about that. The definition of rape in the United States, I looked at the definition.
And
in fact,
we
I tweeted
know
out.
what it is in
And
the United States. We're not talking about the United States. We're talking about Sweden.
You were, Don.
The definition
You just
of
were.
rape in the United States is the same, essentially, as the definition of rape in Sweden.
Now.
No,
not now. No, it's
now.
not. It's
no, you're
not.
wrong. Yes, it is.
It's a different classification.
It's not.
Okay.
I love it. Wasn't that? Oh, it's a different classification. It's okay. It's okay. Oh, man. Man, that is... I got one more. One more. It's just a little bit of Tucker. Just a little bit on this. We'll just go for a minute.
To have this dialogue with you. I saw your show earlier, and I thought it was great when you talked about that we need to move beyond, let's say, that you mentioned the personality of the president or the tweets, and we need to talk about the core issues, and we need to figure out how to have a lot of people come here and how to have them invested in our country. I thought those were really great questions. So I think that, what's really interesting to me, you had some great guests, and the Swedish journalist that you had, I think she got in the details of these statistics enough that I really want to say I can certainly get into the weeds on this with you. For the last 2 years, I've been steeped in this very much. I've seen statistics and reports and numbers, and I would just point out that none of what I have seen backs up the claims that Mr. Horowitz has made in the interview that he had with you, and I watched it twice, and I tried to listen for specific evidence or sources that he would state, and I didn't hear that. Perhaps I missed it, but it seemed to me that it was more anecdotal.
I don't think you did. No, actually, he gave statistics from the Swedish National Council, which I think is part of the Ministry of Justice there, unless
Not this one. I'm talking about the earlier. I'm talking about the earlier interview from which the president
that suggested that there's been an absolute rise in reported crimes, in arrests. And these rape stats are real. And I know people said, well, that's because somehow the women are including rapes from before. Okay, maybe that's true. I'm not an expert in Swedish crime stats, but the overall crimes have gone up 1.5 million in a year.
Well, I don't think it's for me to talk. I think we can sit here and talk about Swedish rape stats. And as your guest just pointed out, I think that one of the reasons, and I'm not an expert on Swedish rape stats, but I do know that a lot of the statistics, the crime rate has not skyrocketed as has been claimed.
Okay.
And one of the reasons among many that those rape stats may be high, again, I'm not an authority on that, is because Sweden encourages people to come forward.
Okay, but it's
let
not
me
just.
move on from that for a minute,
Sorry,
because I think that.
I'm sorry, Ambassador. I don't want you to filibuster. You just said that facts matter, and so I just threw out that the overall crime rate has gone up 1.5 million crimes in a year. Now, maybe that has nothing to do with the refugees flooding into the country, but the truth remains that the government, the prime minister, have said point blank, it's just too many people. We can't handle it. And so I wonder why it's so controversial for Americans to note that this is a problem when the Swedish government itself is saying that.
Break it down, lady.
So you nailed this right now. So that's what I want to get to, because why? It's really interesting to me that for the last 2 days we've been talking about Sweden. And we're talking about this, and I think what the real conversation is, what we're really saying, this is a conversation about security, it's about fear, and it's about misunderstanding, and it's about
That's what it's about. That's what it's about. All right, I'm going to cut her off. She's so bad, but it goes on, and he just can't have it. He can't have it. I got a few leftovers on old Donnie Trump here. Speaking of Flynn.
View columnist Eli Lake, who I just talked about, Circa News, National Security. The title here normally intercepts of U.S. officials and citizens are some of the most tightly held government secrets for good reason, selectively disclosing details of private conversations monitored by the FBI and NSA gives the permanent state the power to destroy. This is what police states do. The permanent state, define that.
Well, it's the national security bureaucracy. It includes everything from the administrative side of the Pentagon, elements of the sort of career military, the CIA, the FBI. It's the people who would have possession of these kinds of intercepts, and we trust them. It is a public trust that this stuff does not get out into the public willy-nilly, because when you kind of selectively disclose it, you can ruin someone, because it's an extraordinary power to be able to listen to someone's phone calls or read their emails like that.
Yeah. So that I thought that it's a different term instead of the deep state, the permanent state. Kind of interesting Thought it was a little worth playing. There's other stories too that kind of caught my attention, but aren't major stories. I thought maybe we give a little attention in the overtime. Wall Street Journal is reporting that Intel officials are withholding intelligence from Donald Trump.
Jeff Sessions was chairman of the National Security Advisory Committee alongside General Michael Flynn. He was a senior advisor in the Trump campaign, the first senator to endorse the president's campaign, and nominated him at the Republican convention in Cleveland.
So Chuck Schumer will make the point that Sessions is disqualified from holding any investigation against Trump. That's interesting. That's interesting. They're gonna make that push. Now, make no mistake about it. The entire reason that the intelligence apparatus is doing all this domestic monitoring and foreign monitoring is so that way they can leverage political blackmail. It's not for you and I. Sorry, we're just not that interesting.
Who, again, was part of the Trump campaign. But in addition to that question, there's also some brand new breaking news right now from the Wall Street Journal. Can we put this article up on the screen, please? Did we make a full screen out of this? Yes, thank you. You see the headline there, Spies Keep Intelligence from President Trump.
What?
Again, this was just posted by the Wall Street Journal. I'll just read you the lead here. U.S. intelligence officials have withheld sensitive intelligence from President Trump because they are concerned it could be leaked or compromised. Citation here is current and former officials familiar with the matter. In some of the, again, quoting from the Journal, in some of these cases of withheld information, officials have decided not to show the president sources and methods that the intelligence agencies use to collect information. Those sources and methods could include, for instance, the means that an agency uses to spy on a foreign government.
They're not disclosing their own sources and methods to the president. Then who knows? So he's getting the same concrete sources that we're getting about Russian hacks. That's what that means. I want to play that back again. Process that in your head for a second. The intelligence agency is not accountable to anyone. Agencies, they are not accountable to anyone.
And methods that the
a little further.
Current and former officials familiar with the matter. In some of the, again, quoting from the Journal, in some of these cases of withheld information, officials have decided not to show the president sources and methods that the intelligence agencies use to collect information.
Now, if that's the case, then how can the president make an educated decision to know if the intelligence agency is maybe just making something up?
Those sources and methods could include, for instance, the means that an agency uses to spy on a foreign government. They're not showing him that stuff because they're not sure, in short, if he can be trusted.
Or it's because they're lying and they want to manipulate him.
With it. He's the president. Joining us now is Senator Chris Murphy, a member of the Foreign Relations Committee, one of the fiercest critics of National Security Advisor Mike Flynn up until the time when he left his job this week.
That is just, I don't need to hear her interview him. That is, to me, is a massive story. That's a massive story that we're not really talking about.
The confrontational approach the president is taking with the media won't end anytime soon if the reporting stays the same. The White House is defending this tweet the president posted saying the media is the enemy of the American people, and also went after the mainstream media. This all stems from allegations of connections to Russia during the election and questionable reporting.
I think the president has been very clear that certain outlets have gone out of their way to not represent his record accurately. And it is a concern to him. And I think some reporters, he has deep respect for the First Amendment, for the role of the press. I've addressed this multiple times in the past. He has a healthy respect for the press, but I think that it's a two-way street, as I've also said before. And I think that the president understands that certain outlets have gone out of their way to not be completely accurate and fair in their coverage of what's going on.
I would say that's probably a true statement. I think that's probably an accurate statement. I love this one. Wasserman Schultz, she's a little classier about her impeachment strategy than, say, Maxine Waters. She's all in on the impeachment, but she's being more like Clinton about it. This whole thing has a real Clinton vibe.
Sensible.
But to be clear, I just want to make the point here. Others are using that word, and you're purposely not using it. Which I want to make it clear. You're not comfortable using that word.
Yeah. Oh yeah. By the way, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Yep. Still getting called for interviews, still holding office in Florida, still an influential Democrat. It's like nothing ever happened. Like nothing ever happened. It's so amazing. So yeah, she's on with Aaron, and they don't want to use the I word.
Make it clear, you're not comfortable using that word or even talking about it,
you mean
intimating about it
impeachment?
at this time, right? Yeah.
No, I mean, I think we don't call for impeachment until you have an independent bipartisan investigation and we can get to the bottom of the possibility of high crimes and misdemeanors being committed. Collusion between a presidential campaign and a foreign enemy, essentially, who was found by our own united intelligence community to have intentionally
not true
and successfully put their thumb on the scale and helped elect Donald Trump as president of the United States.
So constant contact.
Amazing how many times she said that. She still fails to articulate it very well. Isn't that incredible? You'd think you'd say something 200,000 times, you'd be a little bit better at saying it. Just, I don't know, you'd think so. It's remarkable. Remarkable, that woman. All right, this story is a little weird. It's a little weird. All right, fine.
An alleged airport assassination captured in new security footage, apparently showing Kim Jong-nam waiting to check in. When a woman comes from behind, wipes his face with what's thought to be lethal poison, and walks away. The man believed to be Kim tells airport workers he feels dizzy. As he's walked to a clinic, what appears to be the same woman strolls out of the airport to a taxi. Then the man believed to be the North Korean dictator's half-brother and one-time rival is wheeled away on a stretcher, later pronounced dead at a hospital.
The alleged attack happened here, in an area that, like at any airport, was crowded with people moving in every direction, providing the cover needed for an escape.
Tonight, Malaysian police and Interpol are hunting for 4 suspects, all North Korean men, they say, who left the country the same day Kim was killed. 4 others are already in custody, including that woman in the LOL shirt and another woman whose family says she thought it was all part of a TV prank.
Yeah, this is weird, isn't it? And there's even a weirder twist to the story today. I can't remember what it was, but it's weird. It's just the strangest thing. This next story, I'm going to play it for you. And the first time I heard this story, I thought, yeah, obviously we do this. Then towards the end of the story, and I'm almost tempted just to jump ahead for you, they reveal how far we spied. And then I thought, okay, holy shit, we throw so many rocks and this house is made of glass. So WikiLeaks has dumped some CIA espionage orders for the 2012 French presidential election.
WikiLeaks has released classified documents on CIA spying during the 2012 election in France. The US intelligence agency reportedly targeted the current and also former French presidents. Let's go live to London now, and our correspondent, Anastasia Cherkina. Nastia, good to see you again. Whenever these things come out, there's always a lot to wade through, I know. Have you been able to glean anything so far?
Right, Colin, well, we're certainly analyzing the documents right now very carefully, and we'll be updating in terms of what exactly we are able to find within the information that has been released by WikiLeaks. But it seems at this point that we can tell you that it's quite straightforward in the sense of being quite a major revelation, just like Julian Assange had promised ahead of 2017. He said it would be a big year for WikiLeaks again, and this is certainly not a light set of documents that they have published just within the last hour. Now, especially considering in light of the current situation with so many trying to accuse Russia of getting involved and meddling in certain elections in other countries. Now, this specific latest set of leaks involves the CIA, and what WikiLeaks says the documents are proving is that the CIA had actually been ordered to conduct a spying campaign for as much as 7 months ahead of the 2012 presidential election in France. Now, specifically in a press release that they have tweeted earlier tonight, quote, all major French political parties were targeted for infiltration by the CIA's human and electronic spies in the 7 months leading up to France's 2012 presidential election, end quote. And certainly in these documents that have been released today, WikiLeaks makes it quite obvious by publishing them that the order, according to these 3 classified orders that were released, was to watch the political parties of then President Nicolas Sarkozy, then presidential candidate François Hollande, and a set of other parties in France. And specifically what we have been able to gauge from
part.
what has been released is that the interest involved quite a huge scope, from political strategies to internal communications of presidential candidates at the time, ordering the CIA officials to investigate issues such as interaction with their own advisors, to opinions on the other candidates involved in the campaign, to how the candidates were funded, as well as views on the French economy, views on the US, views on the Greek crisis. So, as you can understand, quite a considerable scope of factors that were being investigated by the CIA during this 2012 presidential election campaign cycle in France.
We want to know it all. Now, I know that report was awful, and I apologize. They are pretty much the only ones that have any audio on it. Gee, if she just had read through it one more time before she came on air, it would have been way, way more palatable. Ugh. Geez, I almost don't want her. I just don't want any more RT. I'm so sick of that. But there's another story that not many other people are covering today, and it's breaking right now as we record this episode, and that's the activists that are being told to leave at the Dakota Access Pipeline.
For more on the latest at the Dakota Access Pipeline protest camp, we are joined tonight by North Dakota Congressman Kevin Cramer, joining us from Bismarck. Congressman, nice to have you with us tonight. Your thoughts on the deadline to evacuate, which was imposed and put forth by the governor, the newly elected governor. I know he knows the issue. Yeah. Is this going to work, Kevin?
You know, I actually have a good feeling about it, Ed. We've been in contact with the law enforcement officials, state officials, tribal officials. And by the way, one of the things the story didn't point out is that the Standing Rock Sioux tribe has voted as a council and as a local community there in Cannonball, asking people to please abandon the camp, to move the camp somewhere else. Oh. Those of us that live here understand this flood is not an if, it's a when.
And that's the problem, is the area is going to flood.
The when is coming quicker than they once anticipated, because there's 53 degrees here in Bismarck today. These rivers are opening up, and when that river swells and the ice comes, those structures will be turned into toothpicks. And
so the tribes asked them to leave. The governor's ordered them to get out. The law enforcement is there, beginning to arrest people. Yeah. How about a distraction, everybody?
A Fox News alert for you. Iraqi troops moving into South Mosul as they try to drive ISIS militants out of the city's western half.
That's right. So we're now getting into Mosul. So there's your, oh wait, what? You want one more? You want one more? Well, this one, all right, let's begin to wrap it up, because this one grinds my gears and we got to get out of here. But I've got to play this one. If you have a loved one affected by diabetes, this is just so frustrating.
More than 29 million Americans live with diabetes every day, and for some, 6 million of them, insulin is a life or death medication. Yeah. Between 2002 and 2013, the price of insulin more than tripled to more than $700 per patient. Federal lawsuit accuses the 3 insulin manufacturers of conspiring to raise their prices. The drug makers deny those allegations. Anna Warner shows us the impact of the price hikes on the patient. Anna, good morning.
Yeah, of course she goes and tells us a story, but the numbers tell you all you need to know. There does seem to be collusion. Maybe what they need is a cheaper way to deliver those drugs.
This technology isn't quite ready yet for rough weather or even populated areas.
You know, right now we're just testing to see how it'll work.
And that's why the plan right now is to only use autonomous drones in rural areas like here in eastern Hillsborough County, where there's fewer hazards and people, and deliveries are more spread out and take longer.
Rural is the most expensive way to deliver, right? The distances are the furthest.
A company called Workhorse is making the drones for UPS.
The drone will basically work as the driver's helper,
designing them to launch off the roof of their new electric delivery trucks. The roof slides open, and from the inside, the drone route is controlled by a touchscreen.
The driver would be stopping to make a delivery, and then the drone will then fly to go make another delivery. The driver would then go and move to another location, and while they're doing other deliveries, the drone will come back and rendezvous with the driver back there at that location.
The process could save drivers a lot of time.
That is probably the most efficient delivery machine ever made.
But even when the technology is ready,
and it's such a complex airspace,
it won't be all clear skies for the drones, which right now are FAA regulated to fly below 400 feet.
Law enforcement helicopters that fly at just 100 feet above that. Some kind of glitch between the remote control and the drone, and all of a sudden that thing shoots up, and it can cause a huge, huge ordeal.
God, you know, there is something wrong with us as a species. We always freak the F out about what might go wrong, what could go wrong. Half of you listening probably right now are thinking about shotguns. People are going to be shooting these drones down. This guy's freaking out that there's going to be some sort of random technological glitch that causes a drone to either accelerate up to or fall 100 feet, which is crazy. I can tell you that is crazy. We go to these irrational extremes because it seems to be the best thing our monkey minds are capable of. And so we deprive ourselves of nice things. Like there is here, and here was my version. I did it too. I'm no better. My version was, well, are they going to put cameras on these things? And then are the law enforcement agencies going to subpoena the footage from these drones that are out delivering packages around our houses? Then what? And that's where my mind goes. We all do it. And it's so annoying because most of the time, these super, super worst case scenarios never end up happening.
Cause a huge ordeal.
Experienced pilot Stu O'Shannon also worries what happens when the drones are one day allowed to fly out of sight.
Beyond line of sight, I can't see perhaps wires or other aircraft that I may incur.
UPS promises it won't use the drones unless they're safe. As of right now, the FAA regulations still prevent someone from flying a drone out of sight without a special exception, and right now there's no timeline.
And nobody ever does that. Nobody would ever do that. No. All right, I do have one more Maxine Waters clip. I saved it. I couldn't help myself, guys. I thought this would be a great way to end the overtime. So here it is. Ladies and gentlemen, I present Maxine Waters admitting what might be a federal crime. I think this is a crime on television.
Well, I know you grew up 1 out of 13 children. That's right. Yeah. Right. And when you were younger, you were a busser at an all-white restaurant.
That's right.
So how was that experience?
There was this restaurant called Thompson's Restaurant in St. Louis, Missouri. Mm-hmm. And, of course, we were all looking for jobs during the summer. We'd put our ages up. I was about 14 years old. Wow. And I lied, said I was 16 so I could get a Social Security card.
What? I'm sorry, what?
And I lied, said I was 16 so I could get a Social Security card.
What? I don't understand that at all. Maybe you can help. Explain to me, unfilter.reddit.com. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to our patrons. I missed you last week, and if you missed us last week, go consider, just give it a thought. Give it a process. Mull on it. Patreon.com/unfilter, where you can sign up, support the show, and get last week's exclusive show. See you next week.
Get it out of here.
Is that not a felony? Lying to get a Social Security card? I don't know. So I have a couple of supercuts I want to play for you. I can't release them to the public because they have music under them, and I'm going to get, even this live stream was going to get content flagged for it. But, fuck those people. I'm going to play these for you because I always get on my high horse about how the media never went after Obama for this. The media never went after Obama for that. Well, this clip, this shows you some of the hard-hitting questions when the media, quote-unquote, grills Obama. So here we go. Supercut time.
I got the Christmas Eve excitement brewing right here at Hardball because tomorrow night at precisely this time, 7 o'clock Eastern, the President of the United States is going to join us here on Hardball.
People in the mainstream media have been accused of being afraid to speak truth to power, and I've got some truth to power. Your dog looks like he's out of control.
A lot of parallels have been offered between yourself and John F. Kennedy, who also made history, came in with a young, attractive family, had a lot of big Harvard brains around him.
When was the first moment
that it began to sink in that you were president of the United States.
Ask you about it. Any time in this campaign, did you have a chuckle that you just couldn't get rid of? Something weird that happened. It was so crazy that you just went to bed laughing about.
How confident are you that your plan is going to work, and how do you avoid the dangers of being too cocky?
You racked up a lot of wins in the last few weeks that a lot of people thought would be difficult to come by. Are you ready to call yourself the comeback kid?
You know, you are the equivalent of a rock star.
God, they loved him when he was first elected. Man, they loved him. And look, the lower third says Obama's message, the audacity of hope. God, they loved him.
In politics.
Do you feel sometimes like your administration is not given the credit it deserves?
Where do you get all this confidence?
How does this feel of all the honors that have come your way?
During these first 100 days, what has surprised you the most about this office, enchanted you the most about serving in this office?
Christy and I go back a ways.
I've never seen you lose. I wasn't looking that one time.
There you go.
Finally, this is a political question you want to duck, but how does your golf game hold up next to Tigers?
My God.
Golf. What does it do for you? You think Utah, which finished undefeated by defeating Alabama, has as good a claim as either of those schools to be the national champion?
How do you handle the controversy, the negativity? Yeah. Why be are you a masochist?
And business gets done on this walk.
Yes, exactly. And what do you think Republicans will be sipping and saying next year?
Okay. All right. I got to give you a couple more because that's fun, right? That's fun. Wasn't that fun? Was that fun? Yeah, it's fun.
There are several media outlets and lawmakers who are going straight to the wall on this. It's Watergate, it's 9/11, it's Pearl Harbor.
Russia hacked our election. That was a 9/11 scale event.
At the caliber of a Pearl Harbor or a 9/11. Do you agree with that?
I completely agree with that.
The election of Donald Trump was a little bit like, a political and constitutional September 11th.
That was a Pearl Harbor scale event.
Was on the scale of a Pearl Harbor, a 9/11.
It is a 9/11 danger to the sovereignty of the United States.
They attacked the core of our very democracy.
Robbie Mook, the former Clinton campaign manager, said it's like Watergate.
Parallels to Watergate here are eerie.
Just like with the Watergate scandal.
Revelations that have some raising the specter of Watergate.
Dan Rather said this has the potential to be bigger than Watergate.
Is bigger than Watergate.
Scandal as big as Watergate.
One Democrat now using the word treason to describe the new Russian revelations.
You, sir, floated the word treason.
It seems like there's a lot of evidence that there are members of the administration who are more concerned about Russia's goals than our own.
That, I believe, is actually close to the textbook definition of treason.
I mean, look, well, if that's the definition of treason.
Senate Democrats want a 9/11 style commission.
An independent investigation, similar to what we did after we were attacked on 9/11.
The House and Senate ought to be doing this jointly, just as we did after 9/11.
Just like we had after 9/11.
And I would like to see a 9/11 type commission.
Kind of like the 9/11 committee.
9/11.
That's a great moment. All right, so I got one more. I got it. Actually, I might have two more. This one is the media telling you how they're your champion.
If it weren't for journalists digging into this, we wouldn't know about it. So when you hear about anonymous sources, when you hear about leaks from the White House...
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that, TK Ryan. You know what? Thank you for saying that. Because if this at all bothers you, if this is like, this is kind of annoying, this would be not even 1% of the amount of crap that producer Matt and I watch every single week for this show. So here is the media being your champion.
Government. Right. This is what that's so important.
That's what you do when a story is fake, as they love to say. You correct it.
And others might be looking at it as the press having scored some points against this White House.
A big moment for investigative journalism. Right. This has been a story led by the Washington Post, the New York Times, the CNNs of the world.
And the responsible journalistic outlets like the Washington Post, the New York Times, and CNN are vetting that information before they put it out there. Their refusal to bring out facts that would have never come to light without journalists doing their job.
It's the leaks and great journalism that led to
what we're talking about. There were leaks and great journalism that definitely led to this.
What we're seeing playing out on the pages of the New York Times and the Washington Post, that's real journalism. That's real reporting. And that's a real public service to this country.
This is what journalism is.
Ow! Hey, buddy, how you doing?
This isn't a pat on the back.
I'm going to need a Phillips, too.
Oh, no. These bastards. Why would they do that?
What kind of piece of technology crap you running over here?
It can also be charged over USB, so we'll just get you. I'll get you an USB. Yeah, I'll get you an USB here in a second.
It's rechargeable.
Why don't we play? Well, since I got to get that, we'll play one more highlight.
The
reel.
White House's credibility has been damaged by all of this, and you could argue that the press, American democracy, U.S. intelligence, and the U.S. court system are just some of the institutions that have been dragged at times forcibly into the chaos.
Because what Bannon said, first of all, is that the opposition party is the media. And in fact, that's not the case. That the opposition party is the truth.
That's what Trump is trying to do with these attacks on the media. Journalists are, by and large, honest. There's a few that make mistakes here and there, but journalists are honest.
Part of the problem for us in the media is that Trump attacks us so much all the time. You know, we are the opposition party. We're third-rate human beings.
We're trying to do our jobs, and you've had a problem with facts at the White House, and we're holding you accountable when the president or his senior staff says things that simply aren't true.
And certainly the media makes mistakes, but it's very difficult to hear those criticisms from a White House that has such little regard day in, day out for facts, for truth.
We have a sense of ethics. We don't want to lie about anybody. Why are they saying we're lying about them and the opposition party? And we're trying to come up with ways of how we can get around this president's opposition.
I think the American people just need to be shown what is true, what is factual, relentlessly by us, and we can't abrogate that responsibility.
But let's also not get too high on our horses here either.
I think
that's what you call dead air right there.
I think that is the first time. I think that's the first time I've ever plugged that thing in.
Really?
Oh, look at that! It's got a little battery.
You didn't know that?
No, I think I've never. I don't think I've ever had to charge that keyboard before. That's kind of amazing. Hey, buddy, how's it going?
You know, I gotta say, man, sometimes I feel like we need like 6 months off, man. It's just this first month, first month and a half of this
Trump
new
stuff.
presidential.
Yeah, I know.
It's just too much.
It is rough, dude. It is rough. But you know, people were upset that we took the week off. Like, people were not happy. Like, people they need the show. They need it. But you know what's funny about that? It's like, if you need it that badly, if you miss it that badly, then go sign up for a Patreon and you still get a show.
Well, were the people complaining? Were they patrons?
I was on the subreddit where they were really upset.
Oh. Yeah.
And I appreciate that they like the show that much. But at the same time, too, I'm like, well, if you feel that strongly about it, then you would really be upset if the show went away. And it's like, you know, we had a really bad week, and it's like, God, we could really use the time to get our back end in order. The beard's gone for editing. It was just a perfect week to take off, but there was a lot of news, so people were upset.
Well, don't worry. I signed a new executive order to take care of everything.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I don't need to pass any laws or go through Congress or anything. I just do it on my own.
No, why bother?
Yeah,
why bother?
I mean, why do you need to?
I wasn't live and able to tell Chris last things. Yeah, there you go. Now you can. You are live. Yes, there was a show for patrons. We should probably maybe mention that. Maybe at the top we'll say, hey, we're back this week. And yeah.
But we did do something last week. And that's the thing, right? I mean, at some point, you know, maybe we'll go Patreon exclusive.
Just never getting new patrons? I wonder how you would get new. You'd have to release you'd have to do little YouTube blitz clips, little.
Right, and actually get the word out and that sort of thing.
Okay, we are recording. It is episode 226.
5, huh? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm hoping to go to Obes after this.
Fully, you're gonna go full Obes?
I hope so. I mean, why not? After a certain point, what would I be missing?
Multicasting, but I guess
Obes has that now.
Well, you can multicast to multiple sources?
Oh, I don't know. I think so, but maybe even if not, we've gone around that by we go to a droplet, which then
that's
multicasts.
True. Yeah, that's true.
that's I don't know about that part. But we infrastructure wise already have that problem solved.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
I actually find Wirecast is remarkably a better product when you don't use it for streaming. You know, the day we moved
Are you talking for what, just switching?
Yeah, and recording.
Yeah.
The day we moved our streaming over to OBS, Wirecast instability went way up.
Oh, well, sure, you're in
way less stuff.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it was sort of a great move anyways. But I don't know how OBS is with green screens. I haven't really played on that very much.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know Wirecast and XSplit. They both have great green screen chroma key stuff.
Yeah. I could be persuaded to drop the green screen and go with a physical set too. I know. Yeah.
Well, then if you need
especially if I could just roll this up and then have a physical set and then
that's
roll
what
it down.
You see my green curtain? I just drop it down.
I could see doing something like that.
You should just roll it up.
Roll it up. You never know. All right, here we go. It is the Unfilter Show, and it's 2:26, right? Right?
Is it?
Right?
I don't know.
Right?
I don't keep track.
Right?
I stopped counting after.
I got to bring
100.
the thing back because 2:26. Yeah, I know. After 100, because the thing is, I have so many other shows, and they're all at different number spaces.
That's true.
It just it all runs together.
We should just start with letters. This is show
Roman numerals.
AAXZ.
No, Roman numerals. Oh God, dude, could you imagine the template? We'd have to keep increasing the width of the template too. All right, here we go. Yeah. Chat room, please bang suggest as we go, and we'll be in a 3, in a 2. And
I'm spent.
Oh, geez, I accidentally relabeled one of my soundboard tabs. Whoa, that's not the button I meant to push either. Holy crap, it's all falling apart right here.
OMG.
We need to refresh the soundboard.
Well, we need some Trump.
We need Trump stuff. I really need people to help us with this.
Actually, we don't. Not just Trump. We need Trump administration
and we need,
stuff.
Yeah, we need
Spicer.
spicy. We definitely need spicy.
Yeah.
There's some good spicy ones in there. Even some Melissa McCarthy would be good in there.
Period.
Yeah, exactly. All right, here we go. It's the Unfilter Show, and it begins right here, right now, in 3, 2. This is Unfilter, episode 226 for February 22nd, 2017.
It's like, oh yeah, you guys are going crazy. He's doing, what are you so surprised about? He's doing exactly what he said he's going to do.
Well, and I think that the dangerous, edges here are that he's trying to undermine the media, trying to make up his own facts, and it could be that while unemployment and the economy worsens, he could have undermined the messaging so much that he can actually control exactly what people think, and that is our job.
Yeah.
Hey, you. Yes, wake up over there. It's time again for another edition of Unfiltered, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly show about the news you shouldn't be watching. I'm Chase. There's Chris.
Yo.
We missed you guys last week a lot. So much, in fact, that, hey, if you're a patron, head over to patreon.com/unfilter after this show because we released a very special Patreon-only episode last week.
Yeah, it really sets up the intelligence agencies out against Trump thesis in a pretty good way using the news of last week, like Flynn's resignation and
wait, resignation. I thought he was fired.
I just couldn't imagine another week, Chase. We just can't quit our patrons. So it was good for us to take a week off in the sense that we essentially covered 3 stories. And that meant that we could do way less clip collection for a little bit, clean up a whole bunch of stuff while the beard was back home. It was a perfect timing.
Oh, yeah.
But we
And you finally restarted the iMac.
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah, it was good. It was good. The thing is though, we didn't rest. We still were following the news and all of that. So we got some stories we're gonna get into. We got a really.
I wish
big
I
show.
wasn't following the news.
Oh man. So we start with the cyber. You know how you and I like.
We
the
like
cyber.
the cyber. We do it every day.
So you and I, you might consider us cyber experts, especially compared to the news actors that are on.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So let's break down this clip. There is a call for a digital Geneva Convention to protect civilians. Now, keep in mind, this is a very loose definition of civilians because by civilians, they mean rich multinational corporations.
Oh.
From cyber warfare.
Because they're people too, right?
Cyber crimes aren't just committed by rogue hackers looking to steal your credit card numbers or personal information. There's a growing concern over cyber attacks carried out by nation states, sometimes against private companies or even individuals.
Now, one of the leaders in the tech industry is trying to take the problem head on.
Can you guess that leader? Can you guess the leader in the tech industry that's taking this problem head on?
Google?
That'd be a good guess,
It'd
right?
be a good guess.
Yeah.
Another
Yes, it's. I was gonna throw another one out there. Like Cisco would also be a good guess, but no, it's Microsoft, and it starts to get a little weird.
At a cybersecurity conference this week, Microsoft President Brad Smith called for a digital Geneva Convention to protect civilians from cyber warfare. For more on what exactly that means and how it could be implemented, we're joined by CNET's senior editor, Dan Ackerman. Okay, Dan, so Smith is saying that companies basically need to be a version of Switzerland. What practically does that mean for the tech industry?
Microsoft's argument is we're too big to fail. And if we are included in these nation-state attacks and we're taken down, the critical civilian public infrastructure will be taken out.
That means that a lot of these big companies, the big tech companies, they provide so much critical infrastructure for communications and commerce, and they need to essentially be sort of neutral global players where you are taking them off the battlefield just as if you cannot attack civilians in wartime. They're saying these companies are essentially civilians, just like civilian infrastructure, like power grids and things like that.
Of course, we'll take your subsidies. I find this to be sort of this we are too big to fail argument is sort of overly self-serving that I just find it inherently suspicious.
Aren't there already laws existing on the books that cover them?
Like don't attack companies?
Right,
yeah, I think there's some laws.
Yes.
This is supposed to be like a New World Order international agreement, though, that all the participating nations would supposedly follow.
So the good guys wouldn't attack, but the bad guys would still attack.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Doesn't really stop anything.
I know. And, I tell you what, Chase, I think maybe the best things that could happen to our society would be some of these critical internet infrastructures being taken offline for a little while. So that way,
I miss those days.
Companies like Vizio couldn't spy on all of us through our homes.
Finally denied a victory for privacy rights. The Federal Trade Commission has settled charges against television manufacturer Vizio for secretly collecting data on its customers.
Did you hear about this?
Yeah, but
it's out of focus, isn't it?
Well, I have a second question. Is this guy in front of a green screen?
I know. I just think it's I don't know. I don't know.
Sorry, guys. I always go technical.
I can't
go
tell.
off the left field, but
the production quality is so bad, I can't actually tell because the background's out of focus and the foreground's out of focus.
Yeah.
Nothing in the shot is in focus.
No, it's terrible. Well, I was going to say about the Vizio thing is we got a Vizio into the shop at work.
I got a Vizio right here.
And this was one that was been sitting in our shop a while and it hasn't been plugged into the internet. And so I went through the internet setup and it was like, you have to agree to this disclaimer and this one and this one. And it's watching you. And,
it's creepy.
Yeah, it's very creepy.
And then they sell that to advertisers.
Of course.
Yeah. I've made this mention on another show, but I just want to say it again because I think it's critically important. This show is audience funded, and this is, in a story like this story is actually about advertisers. Vizio was collecting information about your watching habits and actually screen grabs and transmitting it
and
up
internet
to their servers
usage too, by the way,
to sell it to advertisers, which they could then combine with other data metrics to track you. This is exactly what's beginning to happen to podcasting. Podcasting is being DVR'd by companies like Stitcher and Google Play and these other applications that combine multiple podcasts where they rehost them and then they stream them to you and they insert ads. These are complete data metrics collections apps. Have no disillusions. When you hit pause, Stitcher records that. When you jump back, when you jump forward, when you turn your phone up, when you turn it down, how far you've listened, if you skipped over the ad, Stitcher and Google Play podcast track all of it.
Look at the permissions when you install these apps. I mean, it tells you a lot right there.
This is going to start happening to podcasting in a big way if the people that listen and consume to podcasts don't do something. And this is another reason why audience-funded shows are very important. There's plenty others out there. We're not like some unbelievable pioneers with this idea. It's just simply the way advertising industries tend to work is from their end, they just really want to make sure that they're getting what they're paying for.
Yep.
And there's often so much scamming in advertising that they if they can get more metrics, they'll do it because it's their money. I mean, Chase used to work for a company that was their sole business was collecting metrics so that way advertisers could make purchases.
Right. Advertisers, television stations, everybody. That was kind of They use Nielsen as the third-party independent currency because no one can trust. It's like saying, all right, Chris, tell me your advertising numbers. You want a third-party metric because you could inflate them and no one would ever know.
And we actually, so for podcasting, we use PodTrack. And PodTrack, it is an HTTP redirect, and it doesn't count anything more than an independent download. And that is sort of like, that's about as far as I'm willing to take it. Because that stays anonymous. It's just a number that gets reported by PodTrack.
Right.
And it's just via an HTTP redirect. That seems to be like the line I'm willing to walk because that just gives me information too of how many people are downloading the show. Like I kind of need that just as diagnostic data.
Fact.
That makes sense. But this next level that we can now do with like DVRs and Stitcher and other applications like the NPR One app where they are way more aware of your use case and your use behavior. It's a whole nother level of data that's getting collected.
And that's where you guys out there need, and I know a lot of our audience already does this, but just keep an eye on who's getting your data and follow up and make sure you're not being tracked unnecessarily.
I like it, Chase.
Yes, buddy.
So let's move into a world story that is one of the big upsets from the Trump administration is what are they going to do about NATO? What are they going to do about NATO?
Meanwhile, Vice President Mike Pence was in the process of delivering some straight talk to the NATO nations. It's all about security and paying the bill. For more on that, let's turn to Manila Chan tonight. Manila, this really has turned out to be somewhat of a meeting of clarification, hasn't it?
Oh, it's been a big meeting since NATO had a double dose of demands from America over the past few days, meeting with members of the new Trump administration. Today, VP Mike Pence met with Jens Stoltenberg just days following a visit by newly minted Secretary of Defense James Mattis. The vice president, though, minced no words.
President of the United States and the American people expect our allies to keep their word and to do more in our common defense. And the president expects real progress by the end of 2017.
I feel like this is going nowhere. This is going to go. I don't know.
I mean, it's one of those things where he said during the campaign he was going to try to pull out of NATO, whatever, and then he said recently, he was going to stay in NATO, and it's all politics. It's just.
Here's a story that feels like it's right out of Vietnam.
The Pentagon has confirmed to RT that despite vowing not to use depleted uranium in Syria, they've in fact fired thousands of rounds during the U.S.-led anti-ISIL operation. You're looking at official video showing coalition strikes using depleted uranium to target an Islamic State oil truck convoy.
Do you know why we do this? What is the? There must be some reason that we go all in on uranium like this over and over again, but I don't know what it is.
I don't know either. Make the area unusable for a while. Or?
Let's just I guess somebody. I'm sure somebody listening knows if they could educate us on this. I'd appreciate that. And let's just get RT all out of our systems with one more report.
Our top story this hour: the United States and Russia are simultaneously bombing the self-proclaimed Islamic State in Syria's Raqqa region. Though the two militaries do not coordinate strikes, they do keep in contact to avoid dangerous conflict in Syria's airspace. RT Simone Del Rosario reports on how these two countries are relying more heavily on this deconfliction hotline to pass on information.
So we've talked about this deconfliction hotline once before on the show. It was established a little while ago, and now the use of it under the Trump administration does seem to be expanding a bit, which is probably a good sign, slightly more cooperation, but don't call it cooperation.
No.
On Friday, Russian Tu-95 bombers targeted the Islamic State in Raqqa, Syria, using X-101 cruise missiles, according to Russia's defense ministry. Both Russia and the U.S.-led coalition are operating in the region at the same time, but they do not work together. To avoid any kind of catastrophe mid-air, the U.S. and Russia communicate through a deconfliction hotline.
Now, did you see there in the chat room that it looks like depleted uranium's turns out specifically good at penetrating tanks?
That makes sense.
Oh, man. Wow. Well, how many tanks does ISIS have?
Well, if it's good as tanks, it's also probably good at like fortified buildings as well.
Thick steel and whatnot.
Thick steel and that sort of thing. Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
That is some
Thanks for the education.
Yeah, I love that. I love that chat room.
It's like a hive mind.
JBLive.tv. Yeah, they're on there helping us.
Yeah.
So let's keep talking about Russia for a bit. And I think what we should do is probably cover one of the biggest stories that happened last week that we didn't have a main show for.
Michael Flynn's resignation as National Security Advisor after only just over 3 weeks on the job had been brewing for days. The retired general had become a lightning rod for criticism over his ties with Russia. It was a relationship dating back to 2015 when Flynn sat right next to Vladimir Putin at a dinner in Moscow.
My God. If you are,
that was so blatant.
We are now in a period of time that feels like McCarthyism all over again. If you are photoed with a Russian, if you have business ties in Russia, if you do any business at all with anybody connected to the Russian government, you're immediately guilty. You are assumed guilty. You are assumed compromised by Russia, just instantly.
I don't know.
I know. I really feel that. The reason why
he did
not just to him, not just
I
him.
know, but I'm just saying though. I mean, they're setting up a timeline, but he did. What was that rule or the law or whatever?
The Logan Act.
The Logan Act. I mean, he knows better. I mean, he's a 3-star general and he knows better.
I would bet you.
I mean, he was fired from the Obama administration.
Don't I owe you a dinner already?
You already do.
Damn. All right, I'll bet you a beer at that dinner. I will.
All right.
I don't know if we're ever going to find out. See, neither one of us may ever get to collect. But I bet you a beer at that dinner.
Right.
If they ever release the transcripts of the calls, it'll be the mentions of sanctions will be so vague that we'll be astonished that this got him in trouble.
Oh, you really think the calls will be released?
No, but there is people. Well, there are people calling for it. There is a committee that's calling for the calls to be released, the transcripts of the calls.
Okay, all right.
But there was an interview where apparently someone in the Trump administration said the sanctions were mentioned, and it actually sounded like Flynn was trying to distance and speak very vaguely about them.
Yeah, but he shouldn't have even been on the call in the first place.
Come on.
No, I know, but still.
So what? So he can't, as a private citizen, he can't call up somebody he's going to be working with in a few weeks?
Well, if there's specific rules against it.
The Logan Act, what it's about, and it's an old law.
True.
The Logan Act is about a private citizen negotiating on the behalf of the United States government.
Correct.
I would be willing to bet a beer at that dinner that when the transcripts comes out, there will be zero negotiations outside of setting up a phone call.
Okay. All right.
I think it's
I take the beer, even though I don't think we're ever going to get the transcript.
The issue is we're not ever getting any sources.
No,
We're just
true.
getting the
That's
intelligence
very true.
agencies tell the media.
Right.
The intelligence agencies tell the media, and then the media tells us.
Right. That's true.
I'll have a clip in the overtime.
Okay.
Get ready for this. The Wall Street Journal has reported that the intelligence agencies aren't even telling Trump their sources. They are not disclosing sources and means.
I've heard that, yeah.
That's astonishing.
Yeah, because they don't trust them.
So you just get to claim Russia, and then you don't have to prove sources and means, and then the media parrots it. And if they can find a photo, then you're really screwed.
So Quartermonk, you must be reading my mind, because I was just going to throw this out there. Why did Flynn even lie to Pence in the first place when he talked to VP Pence about it?
Do you think he really did?
Well.
I think that's bullshit.
You think so?
I think Pence and Trump knew all along. Maybe not Trump. But why wouldn't you?
Well,
there was no, again, if you accept my premise that there was no actual negotiation, then why wouldn't you make this call?
That's true.
Especially if once you're on the job, you're going to be working with this guy.
True.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think, once you publicly said, we didn't talk about Russia, and then he had to be the fall guy because Pence couldn't be the liar because Pence was on the Sunday shows. So Pence can't be the liar, and then so he's got to go. They're going to break down the timeline here in a little bit, and I think in here it doesn't really hold up.
2015, when Flynn sat right next to Vladimir Putin at a dinner in Moscow. But it was December 29th, 2016 that became the beginning of the end for Flynn. That day, President Obama announced new sanctions against Russia.
And also, let's also take the wider context here. Those last-minute sanctions that Obama threw at Russia on his way out the door were an FU to Trump and his future relations with Russia. It was sabotage. Obama does this on his way out the door to make things hard intentionally for Russia and Trump when he comes in the door. These weren't the original sanctions over Crimea.
No.
These were new sanctions that Obama launched in December.
But what were they? They were in reaction to something that happened.
Yeah, it was supposedly the Russian meddling in the election.
Right.
Which is crap.
Right.
They were crap sanctions that were designed to box Trump in.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that.
And so it seems like what these guys tried to do, Trump's team, is they tried to do a one-ender around Obama and set up negotiations first and say, hey, look, let's just have a phone call. We'll have negotiations once Trump's in office. Don't worry. Don't freak out.
They should have just used Telegram.
Good one. Yes, they should have.
They just used Telegram. No one would have known.
Today, President Obama announced new sanctions against Russia, expelled 35 Russian diplomats, and closed 2 Russian compounds.
And then you remember Putin's response?
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, why don't you children come to Christmas with us?
Come hang out
New
with
Year's
us.
or whatever it was.
All in retaliation for Moscow's efforts to influence the U.S. presidential election.
I always like this. The CNN B-roll for this is always the voter ballots and the vote counting machines. And remember, the way supposedly that Russia influenced the election was by phishing Podesta, giving his emails to WikiLeaks, and then destroying the trust in American democracy amongst the American people and in Hillary Clinton, ergo shifting the scales to Trump. And remember, the Russians did this before Trump was even the chosen candidate, before the general election. When the other guys like Carson were still running, the Russians had the foresight to influence U.S. elections and release these emails via WikiLeaks. And what the B-roll, instead of computer code going across the screen or WikiLeaks still shots of the emails or even John Podesta walking down the street, they show you voting machine counters intentionally to place that in your mind.
Yeah.
And this is how it's been ever since these stories broke now.
You are correct.
Influenced the U.S. presidential election. That same day, Flynn had several phone calls with the Russian ambassador to the United States. The next day, December 30th, in what came as a surprise to the Obama administration, Putin said no Americans would be expelled from Russia and that he would await the inauguration
this is where Putin made a mistake, I think.
Yeah.
I think he should have did a little something, and then it would have pushed the scent off, right?
Yeah.
It would have been like, oh, there's nothing suspicious about this.
Right.
You're reacting to what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think the reason he did that was it was a gesture for Trump, and Trump couldn't help himself. He had to go to Twitter.
And had to brag about it.
Which makes it seem like colluding.
Donald Trump before taking any action. Then President-elect Trump celebrated with a tweet, "Great move on delay" by V. Putin. I always knew he was very smart.
That, when I saw that tweet, to me that read, one of our guys made a deal.
Yep.
He was smart for taking it. So again, I think there probably was some collaboration to do it. I still don't have a problem with it. Because here's fundamentally why I don't have an issue with it. At the end of the day, I like it. Any step that any government official takes to move us away from World War III is a step that benefits the American people.
But that's the thing, though. Do we really know it's moving us away from World War III, or are we just really playing into Putin's master plan?
Yeah, right. The 4th level chess master Putin, who's planned all of this so far. No.
Remember, he did hack the emails. Right.
You know what puts us closer to war? Bullshit sanctions. And anybody that talks to Russia is a bad guy. This is the stuff that puts us closer to war. About freaking out over them seizing Crimea. All of this stuff with Syria is what's putting us on the brink of World War III.
So if that's the case, then, and I don't know if you have a clip about this, but what was it last week that the missile was fired off? Russia has their listening boat outside of international waters.
There, yeah.
I mean, if that's true, then why would Putin try to escalate and stir things up with American people and the U.S. government if that's true?
What makes you think Putin is?
Well, I don't know.
All right. Well, okay.
Fair enough.
Let's go through. So after that announcement, Trump makes the tweet. We're getting to.
I always knew he was very smart. January 12th, Washington Post columnist David Ignatius first reports that Flynn had those phone calls with the Russian ambassador. But the White House insisted Flynn did not talk about sanctions in those calls.
The call centered around the logistics of setting up a call with the president of Russia and the president-elect after he was sworn in, and they exchanged logistical information on how to initiate and schedule that call. That was it, plain and simple.
I talked to General Flynn yesterday, and the conversations that took place at that time were not in any way related.
Now, this is January 15th, and the timeline's going to start to matter now.
To new U.S. sanctions against Russia.
But Flynn's calls were intercepted by the U.S. intelligence community. Secret transcripts show Flynn did discuss the sanctions, a potential violation of federal law.
How does she know that?
Well, remember, she's at the Pentagon, and it was probably leaked.
That seems like a big deal. That seems like a really big point. And this is starting to feel like Flynn was David Petraeus. It really is, because it's selective leaks that damage him, and it turns out like within the military he's pretty well respected. Like, this was a good choice for this job, and now he's been taken out.
Good choice, even though he's fired from Obama?
Well, I don't know. I guess you could make the argument that maybe especially if you're a Democrat, you could make the argument that he's not a good choice. I happen to think again, because I think avoiding war with Russia is a good thing. I happen to think he is a good choice. But I mean, I guess if you feel like, I guess it depends on your viewpoint and your perspective.
No,
on this.
I'm just throwing that out there, because if he was such a great general working under the Obama administration, he wouldn't have been terminated, right?
I think that's probably a fair point of debate. I'm sort of basing I don't have an opinion of the man. I'm basing that statement on when he was chosen, there was a rash of support that came out from different spokespeople for the military and different analysis. Everybody loves him. That's the support I'm referencing. I mean,
But you tend to get that kind of I don't know. You call it fluff compliments.
Not always.
Like with the new guy.
There's sometimes guys that come out
that just got the nod.
Yeah, same thing.
I mean, he got a lot of good positive.
I
play
agree.
too.
But there have been some picks where they've come out and really rallied against them.
Yeah.
So it doesn't always. It seemed like he was, from a term of like people that are in the military, they respected him. That was the impression I got. I didn't seem to get the impression they thought he was a bad pick. However, to me, it seems like, well, this next guy that's been picked is supposedly some great pick too. And so if he's so great, then why didn't you go with him the first time?
And actually, the ironic thing is about the new pick, he's like the third choice because it was offered to two other guys.
Yeah,
and
Petraeus is one of them.
It said no.
Kind of funny.
And the new pick is a more of a political guy who doesn't really want to get involved. Right. Well, actually, I take that back. He doesn't mind getting involved in conflict as long as there's a plan going in and a plan going out.
And same thing that Flynn got. And so I don't have any personal opinions about any of these guys, and I'm not going to sit here and vouch for any of them, but to me it seems like it was a qualified candidate. Unlike, say, the what's her face? I'm blanking on the education.
DeVos?
Yeah. So unlike DeVos, which was a bad pick, he seemed like, in contrast, a good pick.
He seemed like a good pick.
That's sort of my point. And so so it does seem like he was sort of taken out. He seems like he was sort of Petraeus a bit here. He's sort of like, well, it's the same thing where these leaks came out about Petraeus and then he had to resign.
Well, to be fair, if he's being if he's being Petraeus, where's the criminal charges?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
Then he's not being Petraeus.
Okay.
Anyway related to new U.S. sanctions against Russia.
But Flynn's calls were intercepted by the U.S. intelligence community. Secret transcripts show Flynn did discuss the sanctions, a potential violation of federal law prohibiting private citizens from engaging in diplomacy. Flynn was not yet in office. Law enforcement officials say Flynn made no promises about lifting sanctions and appeared to be trying to be vague. Alarmed, on January 26, the Justice Department attempted to warn the White House.
So on the 26th, supposedly Trump was told about this.
Okay.
Acting Attorney General Sally Yates told White House counsel Don McGahn that Flynn misled the administration about his communications with the Russians and was potentially vulnerable to blackmail. This afternoon, Press Secretary Sean Spicer revealed the president himself was told the same day.
So supposedly the president's told on the 26th. The Justice Department is concerned that because Flynn had this phone call, and Flynn discussed things that he wasn't supposed to discuss, the Russians could now blackmail him with that fact, which I think that's ludicrous because this conversation was in both parties' interest and it'd be undermining their future interest to do something like that. So I think that was never really a risk, but whatever. The thing is, the White House official line, and I find this to be bullshit, the White House official line is that Trump knew on the 26th. I don't buy it.
January 26th.
Immediately after the Department of Justice notified the White House counsel of the situation, the White House counsel briefed the president and a small group of his senior advisors. When the president heard the information as presented by White House counsel, he instinctively thought the General Flynn did not do anything wrong, and the White House counsel's review corroborated that.
Last Friday, after the Washington Post first revealed to the public what those transcripts contained, the president said this.
So this is last Friday.
Okay.
This is way after January 26th.
Oh, yeah.
What do you make of reports that General Flynn had conversations with the Russians about sanctions before you were sworn in?
I don't know about it. I haven't seen it.
So she says, what do you think about these reports? I don't know. I haven't seen it. What report is that?
What report is that? I haven't.
Reporting that he talked to the ambassador to Russia before you were inaugurated about sanctions, maybe trying to...
I haven't seen that. I'll look at that.
So he says he hadn't heard about that. He's going to look into it. Well, this is last Friday.
Yeah, or he forgot.
That's a pretty big thing to forget.
I know.
But it all came to a head Monday when the White House says President Trump asked Flynn for his resignation.
The issue here was that the president got to the point where General Flynn's relationship misleading the vice president and others, or the possibility that he had forgotten critical details of this important conversation, had created a critical mass and an unsustainable situation.
So he supposedly finds out on the 26th, and then it's not until mid-February that the intelligence agencies start leaking it to the media because nothing happened.
And I think that's probably the reason why.
Then it feels like if that's true, then the intelligence agencies are being puppet masters.
Puppet masters, it's weird, I think, just because of the fact that in their eyes, something was done wrong as far as in the eyes of the law or whatever. And they're pissed off that everyone's saying that nothing happened, it was no big deal. But maybe on their end, maybe they have some content in those tapes.
But they're not private citizens.
Yeah.
Right? They're part of a military structure.
Well, yeah.
I can understand like if somebody's a Microsoft or an Apple or a Google employee,
right,
having a moral high ground here. Or if you're someone like Edward Snowden who has just this massive treasure trove of information that reveals unbelievable constitutional violations.
So it was the Justice Department who advised the White House on the 26th, right? That was when the first shot was, and then nearly a month later, maybe less than a month,
a little bit less, 3 weeks later.
3 weeks later, there was still no action, and I think at that point, that's when the leaks started happening and being pushed out because they're like, see, look, the White House isn't doing anything.
Yeah, that's pretty disturbing.
Yeah, because if they're going to do it for this kind of thing, what else are they going to do this for? I mean, if they're going to be...
It feels like they're trying to build a big narrative, and it's part of establishing that narrative. Yeah. And I've heard a lot of people say, well, this is the first domino. This is the first domino. This is not the end of the investigation. This is the beginning. Right. Now, to that point of actual investigations...
Comments on General Flynn confirm that he and the intelligence community are still at odds. The Wall Street Journal reports U.S. spies are keeping sensitive information from the president because of their, quote, deep mistrust of him. The director of National Intelligence, the National Intelligence Office says, quote, any suggestion that the U.S. intelligence community is withholding information and not providing the best possible intelligence to the president and his national security team is not true. Republicans and Democrats are calling for investigations into Flynn's firing, but they disagree about what to investigate.
So here's my thoughts. They have to release the transcripts. They have to.
Yeah.
Then we can make an educated decision here. Was this undermining the U.S. government's position with a sovereign nation, or was this simply one diplomat speaking to another about setting up calls right as very unfair sanctions were being levied against their government?
I think they have to release the transcripts to prove what they did, right? And hopefully they won't be fully redacted, right? A whole bunch of black all over the transcripts.
I'm sure they will be.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where, to take away this whole puppet master thing, if they come out with transcripts that shows just blatancy, okay, fine. But if they come out with transcripts that show just nothing really going on.
You remember during Obama's, I think it was during the 2012 race, he said to like Medvedev or whoever it was, this is my last election. After my election, I'll have more flexibility. And then his response was,
yes.
All right, I'll tell Vladimir Putin. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, he was doing a meeting.
If the transcripts even revealed that level of collaboration, that would seem to be worthy of this amount of upset, which is not even that dramatic.
But here's the weird thing. Isn't it, like, I don't know, kind of obvious to Putin or whatever that, during the election, Trump was so friendly in talking about Russia? I would say generally friendly, okay? If Putin already knew that Trump coming in was generally going to be friendly towards him, do you think it was even needed then at that point to have a conversation to say, oh, hey, don't worry about these sanctions?
That's why I'm willing to bet you that beer that if we ever see the transcripts, it's going to be absurdly vague. Because here's the other thing. Flynn knows he's being recorded.
Right. Or it's going to be specific.
I would assume if I'm Flynn,
one or the other.
I would assume that even if our own agencies aren't recording us, which he was making the call from a government phone, I would assume.
Oh yeah.
So it's not like he's an idiot, and he would probably also be under the assumption that the Russians would be recording it on their end. So I would imagine he was fairly guarded. The call happened.
Very good point. We give you that one. That's a very good point.
And if he wasn't, then he probably shouldn't have been getting that national security advisor position, because that's probably not a good idea if he doesn't understand how that works.
Yeah.
Because you got to be really stupid to forget that.
Fuck the EU.
Let's talk about a little more. So they're not sure how they're going to investigate, if they should be investigating the content of the leaks or if they should be investigating the fact that the call happened. That's, of course, a right-left battle that's happening right now. I thought this interview with a former CIA officer was rather interesting.
Well, President Trump is looking for answers on the leaks coming from the White House. Listen.
Woo! I've gone to all of the folks in charge of the various agencies, and I've actually called the Justice Department to look into the leaks. Those are criminal leaks. They're put out by people either in agencies. I think you'll see it stopping because now we have our people in.
One person who would also like to see those leaks stop, a former CIA officer who says the spies plotting against the president are out of control. Joining me now is that former CIA officer and Democrat. His name is Brian Dean Wright. Thank you so much for being with us.
So great to be here.
So there are leaks. You know this for a fact. You have friends in the intelligence community. You were a CIA agent.
That's right. Yeah.
What are they telling you?
Here's what's happening. A lot of agency officers are doing very, very important and good work, right? But there are a handful who are doing something very, very wrong. Which
you always got to make that disclaimer, right?
Of course. There's always a few bad apples.
Leaking information or not giving that information to the president. They are doing that for a couple of different reasons, but the persons or the folks who are doing that for political purposes, partisan hatred, that's dangerous. That's incredibly dangerous for the Republic, because they don't get to decide winners and losers. The American people get to decide that. They did in November. I might not like it as a Democrat, but the people spoke. And for somebody to sit back and try to push the scales of politics in this country because they don't like the results, especially former spies, current spies, I should say, that's wrong.
Oh, that was an interesting slip, wasn't it?
He's the commander-in-chief. He's the one in charge. He's the one that makes decisions. And if he doesn't have all the information, isn't it putting our country at risk?
Unquestionably. Listen, I served under President Bush. As a Democrat, there were times that was very difficult, right? But you walked in, not as a Democrat or Republican or a Christian or a Muslim or gay or straight. It didn't matter.
As an American.
That's right. And you salute your flag and you salute your commander-in-chief and you serve your country. That is your oath to the American people.
So as a Democrat, how do you think the media or the intel community is treating this president?
Well, again, I think most are doing their job, and most serve him and serve him faithfully. But the problem is, I think it's the leftovers from the last administration, and then people who are just cranky that, frankly, they didn't get a job in the Clinton administration, if I could be very blunt. And I think that they're doing this business out of a political partisanship. I do think that some of them have got this idea that, hey, it is my job to save the Republic, right? No, it's not. It's the Department of Justice. It's Congress. It's the American people to make that decision.
And that's my point. That's my point right there. You might want to be a hero, but it doesn't seem like that's your job.
The problem is, how do you get the information out when it's being suppressed? I mean, how do you do it?
That's always been the case, though.
Right. But now more than ever.
I mean, the information's classified. It's a call between Flynn and a Russian ambassador. That's a classified-ass call.
Right. Well, if it was so classified, it should have been done on a more secure...
Well, we don't know what line it was done on. That's another thing.
That's another, yeah.
This supposedly, this Tony Shaffer supposedly reveals directly who was behind the phone call leaks.
Yeah. Oh.
Here to sort this all out, former CIA-trained defense intelligence officer. He's retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer. Colonel, there have been leaks about phone calls between the president and leaders of Australia and Mexico, as well as the investigation into the Russian alleged interference in the hacks into the DNC.
Right.
Are leaks by Obama officials the problem?
Absolutely, and I put this right at the feet of John Brennan and Jim Clapper.
What?
And I would even go so far as say the White House was directly involved before they left. I'd put this in the form of Ben Rhodes and those folks.
Huh. So that's
okay.
That's interesting. And then I want to play one more clip that got a lot of attention this week. I think this is from Dennis.
The Department of Justice had
Dennis
reportedly
Kucinich.
warned the Trump administration that Flynn could be vulnerable to blackmail.
for his connection to the Russian ambassador. Are you surprised by the resignation? What's your take here?
Well, General Flynn has admitted misleading the vice president, but I think we have to look at this a little bit deeper. A phone call from the incoming director of national security was intercepted, and the contents given to the media, and you have to and so obviously shared by intelligence officials. Now, what's at the core of this is an effort by some in the intelligence community to upend any positive relationship between the U.S. and Russia. And I tell you, there's a marching band and chowder society out there. There's gold in them there hills. There are people trying to separate the U.S. and Russia so that this military-industrial intel axis can cash in.
So is the bigger issue here, in your view, the fact that this was leaked and somebody inside the White House got this news out to the press? What are you saying?
Well, look, it's an issue, and the general has admitted in his resignation letter that he misled the vice president. That's a bad thing. But the American people have to know that there's a game going on inside the intelligence community where there are those who want to separate the U.S. from Russia in a way that would reignite the Cold War. That's what's at the bottom of all this. It's like, it's early in the morning, it's Valentine's Day, but wake up, America.
Wow.
Congressman, do you think that this fundamentally changes the prospect of a stronger relationship with Russia, or do you think that things can proceed as they have been proceeding, as the president has said he'd like to proceed?
What?
Hey, look, what's going on in the intelligence community with this new president is unprecedented. They're making every effort to upend him. Who knows what the truth is anymore? This is like the electronic version of Mad Magazine, spy versus spy. Oh. And so the bottom line is we should not start a Cold War again with Russia. The American people forked over billions of dollars for the last one and changed the quality of life in this country.
Doesn't he know he's a Democrat? He's not supposed to be.
Well, to be fair, he is on Fox, so I guess he's
business at that too. Yeah,
it's the B channel.
Yeah. Let's talk about this really quick. I don't have a lot to comment on this, then just a couple more topics on this whole Russia category altogether.
Now some breaking news to CNN that we're just hearing. Russia's long-standing ambassador to the United Nations has died. The Russian Foreign Ministry confirmed that Vitaly Churkin died unexpectedly in New York. So far, we have no details on the circumstances.
It's been happening a lot recently for Russian ambassadors. Also, just an interesting data point. This man received a solicitation for campaign financing by your buddy,
my good friend,
John McCain. John McCain later said it was an accident, but WikiLeaks a little while ago revealed that John McCain actually solicited campaign financing from this ambassador's office. I'll have a link to that in the show notes if you're curious about that. So it's just an interesting little John McCain connection to this ambassador.
Interesting.
Maybe worth noting. I don't know. This is a funny story. Russia's state media has been ordered to cut back on positive coverage of the Donald.
The Russian news agency Interfax says Russian media gave more airtime to President Trump in January than Vladimir Putin. That is apparently changing as Russian officials scale back their optimism over what one top diplomat calls a new post-West world order. Correspondent Rich Edson has that story tonight from the State Department.
The Kremlin has ordered Russian state media to curtail its positive coverage of President Donald Trump. Russian officials worry the new U.S. administration is less friendly towards Russia than first thought. This is according to Bloomberg, citing 3 people familiar with the matter. As top Trump cabinet members more frequently deliver criticism of Russia.
Our alliance will continue to hold Russia accountable and demand that they honor the Minsk agreements, beginning with de-escalating violence in eastern Ukraine.
Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and Secretary of Defense James Mattis have delivered similar messages, warning Russia to honor its commitments to halt violence in eastern Ukraine. President Trump himself has tweeted, quote, Crimea was taken by Russia during the Obama administration. Was Obama too soft on Russia? And last week, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov claimed the Western-centric post-World War II order is dissolving.
The whole history stage that can be called post-Cold War order has come to an end. We are convinced that its main result is a failure to apply the Cold War institutions to the new reality.
President Trump's relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin began with mutual praise.
Putin comes out, he says Trump is brilliant.
ought to reject that.
And while investigators probe Russian interference in the U.S. election, the White House denies the Trump campaign was in contact with Russian officials. However, reports say Russian officials dispute that, claiming they did speak with those in the Trump campaign. Despite these differences, both U.S. and Russian officials say there's a potential for the two countries to work together, though U.S. lawmakers in both parties are pressing the Trump administration to resist easing sanctions against the Putin regime. And the president's choice to lead the National Security Council, Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster, has accused Russia of running a sophisticated operation to destabilize governments and alliances in the West and influence foreign elections. The Russian government says Secretary Tillerson called Foreign Minister Lavrov today to offer condolences to the Russian ambassador to the United Nations who died unexpectedly yesterday. A State Department official would only confirm that the call happened.
So it seems like perhaps the Russians are beginning to change their opinion of Trump. And there's one guy, this guy supposedly an expert on Russians, who says the spy ship that you mentioned is basically a actions speak louder than words, we don't trust you statement.
Yeah, the Russian spy ship we've been tracking is hanging out, if you will, off the coast of Virginia, home to the world's largest naval base. The U.S. military is monitoring the ship and has been doing so for weeks, as they've told our Lucas Tomlinson in exclusive reporting. And while the president says he wants better relations with Moscow, there is a question as to where his new national security advisor stands. Joining me now is Peter Doran. He's the executive vice president at the Center for European Policy and an expert on Russia and Ukraine. Peter, it's great to have you back on the program. I'm going to ask our control room to put back up the map that we just showed our viewers so they could watch one more time where the ship has traveled over the last several weeks.
So it's just right there off the East Coast.
Yeah, just hanging out there.
In international waters, 30 miles off the coast of Virginia right now. It's kind of incredible.
You'll see that blue line along the shore. So it's worth pointing out that the ship is not doing something illegal, per se. It's not doing something unlike we would do, the Pentagon has also said. But it is significant and is symbolic in some ways, Peter. And I'm curious your thoughts as to what Russia is up to.
Well, the deployment of this spy ship along the east coast of the United States demonstrates that Russia is clearly not happy with some of the recent developments that have taken place here in Washington. So this spy ship is there to send a message, and that message says we're here, we're listening, and we still view ourselves as competing against you. That's the message that this spy ship is intended to send to the White House, and so far the response from the U.S. administration has been very cool and calm, and that's how you're supposed to act given this kind of move from the Kremlin.
I agree. I think that is actually how you should respond because it's all about sort of positioning in this case. This boat is about positioning, but it's kind of creepy.
Well, but like as I said, we do this too, and we do it a lot. And
but they're very public right now. 30 miles right off the coast.
Yeah, they're very public.
Off of a very important naval base where a lot of our subs are stationed out.
Are they doing this to try to provoke a response? To see what if Trump is going to do something?
I think it's an action speak louder than words. Okay. I think we are being told one thing in the media while something else is happening on the background. Trump's people have been out there sort of saying Minsk agreement. We really, he just got on board, like they said in that clip. We don't really know what his take is going to be on Russia. To me, I think Putin and the Kremlin guys over there, however you want to phrase this, I think maybe they are doing something. I guess what I'm trying to say is maybe we're being told one thing and they're doing and acting in a totally different way. That's probably what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because putting a boat off the coast is not really a great way to fire up new conversations with the new administration. That's not really
absolutely not. No. Yeah. It's not going to help.
Seems a little bit like a statement to me, too.
You know what? I'm inclined to agree. I'm doing a lot of agreeing today, but yes, I'm inclined to agree.
So did you hear about this press conference that Trump had? He called up a press conference at the last minute. And it was unhinged. It was crazy. It was all over the place.
I saw the whole thing.
I got a few clips. Let's start. Your buddy,
my good friend
Scott Pelley.
Scott, CBS,
with his best anchor voice, is going to set up the essence of this important event.
All day long, people are saying, "Yes, sir, Mr. President." But you can't do that.
Yeah. Even the news conference yesterday, Scott, he had it against the advice of his top advisors.
Well, there are some things that the president could do, and that is call a news conference anytime. I can also not go the president could do, and that is call a news conference anytime he wants to. We were all scrambling to get on the air because that was a completely unexpected and unannounced thing. But again, this is what the founders had in mind when they created this system of checks and balances. They wanted the president, the Congress, and the courts to be mutually constrained. And
get ready if you can catch the new zinger. You ready for it? It's gonna.
I'm waiting.
I think he's about to nail one. I think they should run with this.
Donald Trump isn't the boss anymore. He's the apprentice, and he doesn't like that.
Isn't that good?
Wow.
Isn't that good?
Wow.
That's Scott. You know,
Did he come up with that one?
I don't know if it was written for him. You know, he went in there. He went in there with that one.
He's waiting.
He actually, it's one of those things where he delivers it twice in the same interview, so you kind of feel like it's a little messaging. But yeah, this press conference, some people call it a meltdown. I really, you know what? Probably you and I, we had talked about what is a Trump press conference going to be like, and we really wondered because Obama's were so slow. He talked very slow.
Look,
and I would edit it down when we played it on the show. But I have a clip, like a highlight reel, and it is edited to make it a little more funny. So bear in mind, it's tight and it jumps around a little bit. But it gives you an essence of the press conference. It's kind of a hit.
The spy vessel off the coast of the United States.
Not good.
There was a ballistic missile test that many interpret as
Not
a violation
good.
of an
Not
agreement
good.
between the two countries, and a Russian plane buzzed a U.S. destroyer.
Not good. We are running, this is a fine-tuned machine. Hillary Clinton did a reset. Remember with the stupid plastic button that made us all look like a bunch of jerks?
That was my favorite line right there. That was my bunch of jerks.
Made us all look like a bunch of jerks. Here, take a look. You know what uranium is, right? It's a thing called nuclear weapons and other things. Like lots of things are done with uranium. He looked at her like, what the hell is she doing with that cheap plastic button? We are going to attack Mosul in 4 months. The greatest thing I could do is shoot that ship that's 30 miles offshore right out of the water. But tomorrow the headlines are going to be Donald Trump rants and I'm not ranting and raving. I'm actually having a very good time, okay? Donald Trump rants and raves at the press. I'm not ranting and raving. I'm just telling you, you're dishonest people. I'm not ranting and raving. I love this. I'm having a good time doing it. And I can tell you one thing about a briefing that we're allowed to say because anybody that ever read the most basic book can say it. Nuclear holocaust would be like no other. Next week, we are going to attack Mosul. I am the least anti-Semitic person that you've ever seen. Did you hear him? Bibi. He said, Bibi. I've known Donald Trump for a long time. And then he said, forget it. We're going to attack Mosul in 1 month. Hillary Clinton, that was a reset. Remember it said reset? Now, if I do that, I'm a bad guy. She gave all that valuable uranium away. She did other things. They say I'm close to Russia. Hillary Clinton gave away 20% of the uranium in the United States. She's close to Russia.
And the Congressional
Well, I
Hispanic
would. I
Caucus,
tell you what. Do you want to
as
set
well
up the
as on
meeting?
Civic
Do you want to set up the meeting?
No.
Are they friends of yours?
I'm just a reporter.
No, set up the meeting.
I know some of them.
Where are you from?
BBC.
Okay. Here's another beauty.
Wow.
Oh man, isn't that great? So I would love to see the press do this kind of stuff all the time. There was one moment that I thought was pretty great.
You said today that you have the biggest electoral margin since Ronald Reagan with 304 or 306 electoral votes. In fact, President Obama got 365 in 2008.
Well, I'm talking about Republican.
President Obama 332 and George H.W. Bush 426 when he won as president. So why should Americans trust you
when you're given that
misrepresenting information?
I was just given. We had a very, very big margin.
The question is, why should Americans trust you when you accuse the information they receive of being fake when you're providing information that's not accurate?
I was given that information. I've seen that information around.
I just love that moment.
Well, I mean, but it's a valid point. I mean, right when I was watching this live and when he said that, I did a double take like, come on, man. You can't say that because I immediately thought of Bush. I was like, he had over like 400. I mean, like, come on, Donald. You can't do that.
Yeah, it left Shep just... he was wrecked.
Play this.
Continuing coverage of the president's news conference that happened early this afternoon. And, it's sort of our job to let you know
he's just like,
when
he's
things
wrecked.
I know.
are said that aren't true, especially by people you've elected. And this president... keeps telling untrue things, and he does it every single time. He's in front of the microphone. It's demonstrable. I can re-rack the tape for you. There were a lot of them today. Some of them aren't really big, but they're coming from the President of the United States. Today he said, I had the biggest electoral win since Ronald Reagan. He didn't. He said this repeatedly, over and over and over again, and every time he says it, it's not true again. Is it a big thing? No. But he's the one who brings him up. Nobody asked about his electoral college win. And here's another thing. One of the biggest questions that the people who ask him questions have right now is, what is this relationship with Russia? When Russia was hacking into the election, hacking into the Democrats, the DNC, your guys were on the phone with the Russians. Did you talk about that? We don't get a straight answer on this question, which leads us to continue to ask the question. And then he says Russia is a ruse. It's fake news. The leaks are real, but the news is fake. So that's impossible. He's saying that the information in the leaks is accurate. After all, it's the reason he fired Mike Flynn, right? Well, he says he fired Mike Flynn because it's very confusing.
Well, no, he says he fired Mike Flynn because Mike Flynn lied to Pence. That's not that confusing.
Yeah.
Jeff Mason's with us, White House correspondent for the Reuters News Agency, and the head of the White House Correspondents Association. John Bussey's here, associate editor of the Wall Street Journal. I hear you over there, Jeff, trying not to upset the apple cart here, but we keep getting a series of untrue things.
So that's Shep's take on the press conference.
And he got a lot of heat for this.
Yeah. Some people said it was his CNN audition.
But, you know, here's the thing. You know, I'm friends with a lot of journalists, and they honestly don't take a bias. They get the story from both sides of the equation. And when they see Trump out there and saying, you know, and that tweet, you know, CNN, ABC, CBS, they're all fake and whatever, and they got Shep. A lot of these people, you know, they got into it not for the entertainment value. They got into it because they wanted to make a difference. And when you have the president of the United States just coming out and saying things that are blatantly not true, and then throws the media under the bus at the same time, they're going to start getting pissed. And, you know, Shep's getting pissed. And I don't blame him. I really don't. It's frustrating.
I follow you to a degree. I don't share your empathy for these news actors at this level of corporate media. I find them to be some of the most dishonest. I mean, just look at the last 225 episodes of the show. They are some of the most dishonest, agenda-driven people.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, I agree. Perhaps at some level there are. I'm sure lots of journalists that are doing it for the story. I don't necessarily agree. At the level that these people are on the television, that I think that's more driven by a corporate agenda.
Well, it's weird when I look at Shep and how he was talking. It didn't seem like an act. It you know, especially when his tone of his voice and the kind of the quiver.
Oh, absolutely. So here's the thing. So he says something in here that I think sets up the entire thing. He says
it's sort of our job to let you know when things are said that aren't true, especially by people you've elected. And
so he says it's our job to let you know when things aren't true.
On this question,
and then he says
this relationship with Russia. When Russia was hacking into the election, hacking into the Democrats, the DNC, your guys were on the phone with the Russians. Did you talk about that?
So if you truly believe with conviction that the Russians did hack the election, quote unquote, and did manipulate, or I'm sorry, no, the term is meddle in the election.
Right.
And then you also believe that there was some conspiring happening on the phone.
That it's not really a hack anymore.
Right. So if you honestly believe these things to be fact, yeah, you probably would be upset. Now, the thing that kind of breaks down here is he kind of exaggerates a little bit.
Your guys were on the phone with the Russians.
Now, he says that your guys were on the phone with the Russians while the hacking was happening. That's fabricated.
Hacking into the Democrats, the DNC, your guys were on the phone with the Russians.
Those things are not related. They were on the phone with the Russians after the sanctions in December.
Right.
The hacks happened back earlier in the year, back in January and March, and that's when the hacks happened. So that bit's an exaggeration. So he is colluding to two facts. But if you truly believe that your job is to tell the truth, and you believe that the Russians meddled in the election, I could see how you could take this stance. I mean, I think it's pretty reasonable.
Sure.
I think it also betrays perhaps that Shep's too busy or isn't exactly doing a lot of reading, because we have yet to see any proof that there was any connection between Podesta's phishing hack and the Russians. The only proof is the private companies that were hired by the DNC.
Yeah, I was going to say, put that in quotation marks.
That then released their reports that say, well, they used Russian keyboards and they worked Russian business hours.
And they had IPs, yeah.
IPs that go back to Ukraine.
Right.
And we all know that elite hackers work business hours, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
And we all know that elite hackers don't know how to hide their IP address, so that makes sense.
Right.
So that's our proof.
Yep.
That's our proof, and there's no there's no evidence, there's nothing that's been released other than those analysis. The FBI wasn't allowed to view the DNC servers. The FBI hasn't been able to do their own forensics on the DNC servers to investigate the hacks. So we don't have any proof. We don't have any proof. So if I was Shep, I wouldn't be so comfortable being so solid in my convictions that the Russians meddled in the election. But maybe he was applying for a job at CNN. Because here's Tapper's take on the.
It was a wild press conference, and I think that, first of all, purportedly, the purpose of it was to introduce his new Secretary of Labor nominee, Alexander Acosta. He talked about Jim Acosta more than he talked about Alexander Acosta. He talked about Hillary Clinton more than he talked about Alexander Acosta. He spent the first part of his remarks talking about accomplishments that he thought the media, the fake media, whatever he wants to call us, were not paying enough attention to.
They're really hating this. In fact, Lemon ended a segment this week when somebody started using the fake news.
But then
they're getting really
focusing
pissed
on these accomplishments and offering an optimistic, positive view of what he's doing for this country. It was an airing of grievances. It was Festivus. It was complaints about the media. At one point he said the leaks were real, but the news is fake, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. He said things that were not true. Peter Alexander from NBC pointed out one of them.
It does. If you understand how Trump speaks elliptically, we've covered this before in the show, it makes sense. It's fake. The controversy is manufactured. The leaks are real. The controversy from the leaks is manufactured. Now, why do I claim that's manufactured? Because an intelligence agency official broke the law and contacted media individuals directly and provided them specific information to damage another political official. See, that's different. That's different than Snowden's leaks.
Yeah.
That's an intentional political attack. And so the drama that was then manufactured by this illegal information that the media was given is the part that is the fake news. And if we knew the transcripts, if we knew what was said, we'd know if this was really a controversy or not.
Right, true.
But instead, we just have to go on the reliable and trustworthiness of the media who's supposedly been able to review these secret calls. Supposedly.
Right.
We don't even know if that's the case. We don't actually even know if they've been shown the transcripts. Nobody's actually made that claim.
And we don't even know, right.
NBC pointed out one of them when he said he had the biggest electoral victory win since Ronald Reagan. That's not true. Clinton, Obama, George H.W. Bush, all were bigger, but moving on to that.
He really is going to bury himself with this, because this diarrhea of the mouth is going to be his Achilles heel, because he just says shit. He just says shit.
Well, it's not just what he says; it's also what he tweets.
Somebody tells him something, or he watches something on TV, and it sticks.
Like he's like the whole Sweden thing. You know, he watched Fox News.
Right.
They talked about Sweden and their refugee program, and then the next day he comes out and says something that's completely wrong.
So I disagree with that, but we'll cover that in the overtime.
Okay.
I don't think it's completely wrong at all. I think it depends on
what's completely wrong for him.
This comes back to your honest journalism again.
No,
hold on. Your honest journalists are quoting statistics from the U.S. State Department. That's bullshit. Why are we getting crime statistics from the U.S. State Department about Sweden? If you go to Sweden and get the BRA statistics, it's a totally different set of numbers.
Right.
So that's what. Anyways, I'll save it for the overtime.
But he was specifically saying that there was attack in Sweden that day before.
Like last night in Sweden or something like that.
Right.
Yeah,
that's what I'm referring to.
That point, I agree. He just runs his mouth. He hears something and he just runs his mouth.
Right.
I agree. I think the situation in Sweden is worse than it's being reported on. But the way. Like, you know, if he would have waited one night, if he would have waited one day, there would have been an attack.
Or he could have picked up the phone, talked to his peoples or whoever, and get some information.
Yeah.
But instead, the danger here is he's getting information directly from the mainstream media instead of getting better sources.
He can be manipulated by these bastards.
Absolutely.
One of the most powerful men in the world can be manipulated by these dumb shits that are being led around by the nose by the intelligence agency.
Right.
So it is extremely dangerous.
Yes.
And of course, he's supposedly selecting certain media outlets, but from what I can suss out, he gets his news from Fox and from Alex Jones.
And what's dangerous here with that is, you know, we we pay attention to all the media. Here we have a clip from CNN. We had one from Fox earlier, one from Russia Today.
Right.
We don't really discriminate. We try to get as much resources as we can possible to tell the story.
The only discrimination I might make is production quality.
Fair enough. Yes. But what Trump is doing is he's only going after media sources that he seems to just disagree with blatantly. And he will only follow the ones that he agrees with. And that's very dangerous. It's not an open mind. It's not trying to gather information from multiple sources.
Yes.
It's just to fit his narrative. And that's the dangerous part.
It's anything that fits his narrative. He runs with it. And that is extremely reckless.
Yes.
And it could lead to him making some very bad decisions that could put us in great danger.
Absolutely.
This is my problem with Trump. This is the bigger picture issue that we're not really talking about. And I like this press conference where they're all freaking the F out about his press conference. I don't understand why anyone is surprised. You wanted Trump? This is Trump.
Brett, I mean, wow.
Yeah, wow, that was the first word you said when the press conference was over. I think that's what a lot of people said. Listen, love him or hate him, this is why people looked at Donald Trump as a candidate and said, this is different. This is somehow refreshing. This is breaking the mold. This is not political correctness. You know, I covered the Pentagon, and Defense Secretary Don Rumsfeld used to hold these afternoon press conferences, and he'd spar with the press. And it was must-see TV back then. This was a different level. This was mesmerizing in one sense. There will be people who say it's unhinged and who say, you know, and whose heads are going to explode about some things that he said, but there is a lot of substance in what he said, and this is Trump being Trump. This is, someone said to him, go back to the campaign trail when you were best and be yourself. After probably some press secretaries and other spokespeople having a tough couple of weeks, he came out and took the bull by the horns and did it his way.
You know, I couldn't have hoped for anything more from a Trump conference. I feel like we get because it's so unstructured, it's so unscripted, it's so loose, and he is so freewheeling with what he says. I feel like we get more insight into the working mind of this man.
I was just going to say that. Yeah. We get more information about what he's thinking, really.
Even on accident.
On accident, right?
In some ways, that is extremely valuable. And so when the American people say, this is what we wanted from Trump, I think that's what they wanted is he's honest in a sense because he can't help himself in some ways.
Right.
And when you combine that with a combative press, you get some really great information. And you know, like that I played that guy fact-checking him on the electoral stats right there because that's what we should be seeing all the time.
Right.
They are going to have to challenge him on this stuff.
And good on NBC for standing up there and said, oh, yeah, by the way, the information you just gave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you hear about this former CIA guy? The CNN was quick to get him on the air because he quit. I quit the CIA and I blame Donald Trump.
Joining us now, Ned Price. He's a former National Security Council spokesman, a longtime CIA analyst who just resigned from the CIA with a very public blast at the Trump administration. Ned, thanks very much for joining us.
So get on here. Get him on here. He's got a public blast. Get him on here.
Why quit now, and why quit so publicly?
Well, Wolf, let me describe to you what I saw over the course of many months. I saw a Republican nominee during a primetime debate just casually doubt the high confidence assessment of all of our 17 intelligence agencies. I saw a president-elect.
Let's stop right there.
I'm the most fabulous whiner.
That's fake news. It was not 17 intelligence agencies. When we actually got the declassified report, it was 3. It was 3 agencies that were willing to put their names on the line. And if I recall, the third agency, the NSA, wasn't even willing to say it was a high confidence. It was 2 agencies that said high confidence, and the FBI had to be dragged. It took them weeks to sign off on it. They had to drag Comey to do it, get him to do it. The NSA wouldn't even say it was a high confidence, and the DHS, which is a bullshit cyber investigation agency, is the only one that was first up to say, yeah, it's legit. This is legit. We'll give it a high confidence. The DHS, so that is 3. It is not 17. We've linked the report in the show notes several times. We've reviewed it on air. It's 3 agencies, not 17. So this guy is already lying to us.
Confidence assessment of all of our 17 intelligence agencies. I saw a president-elect compare our intelligence community to Nazis. I heard him accuse the intelligence community of leaking. And then I saw...
accuse them of leaking. Accuse them of leaking. Like they haven't been leaking to the media for months.
Yeah, exactly.
President Trump, on his first full day in office, traveled to Langley, Virginia, presumably to attempt to repair relations with the CIA. Standing before the most solemn memorial in Langley, Virginia.
These are all talking points. Check, 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 check. So this is... I find this assault by the CIA to be so obvious. They are so anti-Trump. It's amazing to see them do this. It is. We are watching the deep state react to the candidate they didn't want getting elected.
Inside the Beltway. Yep.
This is an amazing event we're watching.
President Trump's new national security advisor is a soldier and a scholar. The president congratulated General H.R. McMaster on Twitter. He is director of a military think tank, the Army Capabilities Integration Center. The president chose McMaster after spending the weekend interviewing candidates for the job. The acting national security advisor will become McMaster's chief of staff. Major Garrett's at the White House with details of the replacement for General Michael Flynn.
Yeah, there you got it. We've already talked about it. Everybody loves him. Everybody loves him. He's a real professional. Real
good guy.
Real good guy. So, interesting week. Right?
Interesting couple of weeks.
Hell of a couple of weeks, really. And I don't even know where it's going from now. This first couple of months is going to be just insane.
You know, I think about this and I'm just, is
it sustainable? You almost wondered. Like, it's so crazy.
Yeah, and it's only been the first month. I just, only thing I ask is, President Trump, please don't blow up the earth. Just
I wonder as we distance ourselves from the butt ramming that the Democrats got, they're still super upset about.
Yeah.
Boy, you should stay tuned for the overtime. I got some great clips coming up from Nancy Pelosi. You got to figure that as we get further away from that loss, maybe some of the emotional vitriol will calm down. I don't know. What I'd like to do is I'd like to focus more on like the real stuff.
Right.
And I think as we get further down the road, there'll be more actions and less worries about possible actions. But it has been the Russia thing has just not let up.
No, and it's going to be something that we will unfortunately or fortunately keep an eye on for a while.
Let's distract ourselves. You want to end it up all on a high note, Mr. Chase?
Well, how about before that high note?
Snap.
Before I want to say a big thank you to all of our patrons over there at patreon.com/unfilter and all the members of Club 33.
I forgot about our new Club 33 position in the show.
That's right, buddy. That's right. So we're doing this towards the end of the show now because, we don't want to be spoilers. So, I missed you guys last week. Club 33, we got a couple of comments. One coming in from Tom. It says, hey, welcome back, Chris and Chase. Recently, the mainstream media unleashed a number of highly coordinated hit pieces. They appear to be targeting anyone who threatens their power and narrative. Their highest profile targets have included PewDiePie, Milo Yiannopoulos, and General Flynn. We talked about General Flynn. What are you guys' thoughts on the situation? Any conspiracy bacon for who is next or what's going on behind the scenes?
His bacon, is his thesis that, I have seen this going around on the internet, that the takedown of Milo, PewDiePie, and Flynn are all related?
I don't think they're connected. I mean, I
don't think so.
No, I mean,
I think we're all just living in a very hypersensitive period right now.
What really got Milo in trouble was
Milo.
Was Milo, yeah. I mean, and it was comments that he made a year ago.
Yeah.
So I don't think that.
It did feel like there was an immediate focusing on him as a character and his flaws. Like we all of a sudden all the spot. In fact, I chose not to put it in the show just simply because it felt like character assassination.
Yeah. I don't think they're all connected. I mean,
think PewDiePie is a great example of where I feel like corporate media, again at the higher levels,
that's true.
They go out. They do not. If you work in independent media at all, you discover that mainstream media hates you and you are a threat. And PewDiePie is the biggest.
Number one
personification of that.
Yeah.
He is the largest on YouTube, like 55 million subscribers.
Crazy number.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
And he's legitimately competing with the mainstream media at those numbers, and they hate him. The Wall Street Journal has been going after PewDiePie since 2012. It is nothing new. And so PewDiePie made some super poor choices with the content he decided to put in his videos, and he just basically gave the Wall Street Journal a gift to be able to take that stuff out of context.
And Google slapped him on it a bit.
Yeah, they canceled his Red series.
Well, the Red series, but
and the Maker Studios pulled their deal.
But
so he definitely.
But he's not going to be leaving YouTube anytime soon, and they don't want him leaving YouTube anytime soon. That's not going to happen. But no, great question there, Tom. Finally, Tech Dragon writes in and says, "Hey, I've been a Club 33 member from the moment it was launched.
Nice.
And in these increasingly partisan times, I'd like to remind everyone that the current disaster of broken partisan Democrat versus Republican political crapshoot with no middle ground in sight was actually predicted by George Washington. The advice is as pertinent today as it was in his day." He did give us a quote, and he wanted us to read this quote. It's really long.
Oh, we could put it in the show notes.
Yes, we will put it in the show notes. It's actually
I gotta get that.
It's a wiki source to Washington's farewell address, and it's a few verses here that talks about it. And it's something that you guys should definitely read, and we'll put a link.
What is the name of it? So people, if they're...
It's Washington's farewell address.
Okay.
And it's verses 20 through 25.
All right.
Yes.
I will read that.
If you guys have something that you want to share on the show and you're in Club 33, I send out a push alert on Patreon every Wednesday morning so you guys can get your notes into the show. And if you want to become a patron today, head over to patreon.com/unfiltered.
Yeah, because not only would you get last week's, but you'd also get
show,
you get the previous exclusives, like we've done them on holidays and New Year's and stuff like that.
Oh, it's good fun.
Yes. So there's a real danger to cannabis coming into the country, and it's one I don't think we've ever talked about.
Oh?
We've debunked the AAA's stats that say that states, this is still, as of this week, this AAA study that we debunked on the show months and months and months and months ago is still getting quoted by people with an agenda saying...
Still?
And it's just, I want to mention it again because you guys are going to hear this. The AAA report that is being sourced, people are taking that data and saying the states that have legalized cannabis are seeing a dramatic, quote unquote, dramatic increase in accidents involving
right, but we never
THC.
get stats. We never get actual numbers.
If you go in there, it's, I think, and this is my rough memory, I think after I did some reading, I found the reports, I found the original study. It is an increase from 8% to 15% of accidents went from that involved THC. So for 8% of accidents to now 15% of accidents involve THC.
Okay.
That's the dramatic increase, but there's a huge caveat that you might remember. And that huge caveat was a majority percentage of those accidents, alcohol was also involved. They do not, when people are when quoting this study as an example of the downside to legalizing cannabis, because this is the only thing they can point to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There was a great back and forth. It was very, very loud, but the Joe Rogan podcast broke down this too recently. You have to go find it on YouTube, but if you want to hear more about that whole discussion about how it gets sourced and all that. But we've linked to the report in the past too. And this often gets cited as the big downside to legalizing cannabis is these increased accidents. I don't buy it because I think because alcohol was involved so many times, I think what's likely is those were probably people that regularly smoke on a regular basis, so they had THC in their system and they drank. And I actually think people who smoke pot a lot and don't drink very often are the worst drunks because they forget how intoxicating alcohol is because they get used to cannabis, which is does not F you up the way alcohol does. And then they go out somewhere or something stupid and they have a couple of drinks and they're used to something in their system like the strength of pot, and instead something the strength of alcohol hits their system, and I think they make really poor decisions because they get slammed.
Oh yeah.
I think this actually could be a problem, just not the way they're reporting it.
Right.
Anyways, but this is here, thankfully, Trent Franks has a much more clear and present danger with marijuana.
Oh, okay.
Well, I haven't changed my mind about being fiscally conservative.
And by the way, this comes out when she asked him a question about the cost of Trump's wall.
And I appreciate the assumption. It turns out this time it was correct. But the reality, Brianna, is that we have to measure all of the costs, ancillary and otherwise, and make the best decision that we can. But I can suggest to you that there are national security implications here for a porous border. We sometimes used to make the point that, if someone wanted to smuggle in a dangerous weapon, even a nuclear weapon, into America, how would they do it? And the suggestion was made, well, we'll simply hide it in a bale of marijuana.
nukes in a bale of marijuana, Chase.
That, if someone wanted to smuggle in a dangerous weapon, even a nuclear weapon, into America, how would they do it?
A bale.
And the suggestion was made, we'll simply hide it in a bale of marijuana.
Trent, this is Chase here. Let me talk to you for a minute. Trent, here's the thing.
I love it.
All you got to do, Trent, is just legalize it in the United States. And then you wouldn't have to worry about the bales of marijuana with nukes in them coming into the country.
By the way, ironically, he sits on the House Freedom Caucus. Yeah. That's a big concern. So I guess, if we can't point to the AAA report, we could always point to the nukes and bales of marijuana
with nukes inside.
Yeah.
Is that like a Kinder egg?
Yeah, it's like a Trojan.
If you need any more proof that weed has gone fully mainstream, just get a load of this. A pong load. There's now a bipartisan cannabis caucus on Capitol Hill.
There we go.
So far, it only has 4 members. And they're all from states where pot is legal. And of course, you got to start somewhere. The Republican congressmen are Dana Rohrabacher from California and Don Young from Alaska. The Dems, Earl Blumenauer from...
That seems what?
Well, where's Washington here? Where's the representation?
We are the worst when it comes to this stuff. We're making head over fists, head over heels, whatever the term is, money.
Yeah.
But we can never market position ourselves appropriately. We could be making so much more money.
I know. Yeah.
So frustrating.
Yeah.
So this seems like probably not a bad way to go, right? Get like a interest group in DC to help pull the strings. This is how you do things, right? What do you think of that? What?
Well, I was reading earlier today on Reddit that I think we'll have something for next week's show because I think there's something been introduced to basically leave it to the states in regards to marijuana and changing the Controlled Substances Act. And I think we're going to be hearing something more about this week.
Really?
I think
I'll keep
so.
an ear to the ground, Chase, because that would definitely fit into the high note. If you see a story like that, please do feel free to submit it to our subreddit. Where do they find that, Mr. Chase?
They head over to unfilter.reddit.com. There you can engage in the conversation, submit stories. Now, we know there's a lot of you guys that love to submit a lot of stories, but what I would love to see is conversation. I love it when the community gets back
breakdown,
and
analysis,
and talking about it, because that's really where Reddit gets its treasure. So unfilter.reddit.com. It's a very happy and welcoming community.
Most of the time.
And
you can help make it that way.
That's true.
The other way to engage with us directly would be the tweeters.
That's
you can
right.
follow me on the tweeters. I'm at Chris LAS, and the network is at Jupiter Signal. What about you, Mr. Chase?
People can follow me at Nunes, Nunes, and also my little network called Geek Gamer TV at Geek Gamer TV.
Check it out.
Yes.
Now, the Unfilter show is live. We have that chat room who's sometimes giving us nice feedback and tips or telling us that we're crazy. Either way, it's a full spectrum in there.
That's right.
And you can take part in that spectrum over at jblive.tv. Find us live on Wednesdays most weeks, and you can always get it localized to your time zone at jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact.
They're like the hive mind. They
Or
keep
calendar.
us in check. They let us know what's going on.
Yeah, we got the calendar page. We got the contact page. That's another great way. And then we got the Patreon, which we mentioned earlier, patreon.com/unfilter. We got special levels there you can kick in at where we give you access to all of our clips. Everything we talked about, everything we played, and a lot more clips in that supporter sync.
A lot of bonuses in that Patreon, too.
And something I didn't mention all episode, which I don't even know because it's almost like a tick, our show notes.
Oh, yeah.
Links to a lot of the stuff we say or just offhandedly mention in the show, or written articles that back up some of the video.
All
or
the
audio
links
clips
to
we
show
played.
notes, too, are also on jupiterbroadcasting.com
You got it,
on the
buddy.
Unfilter page,
You got
which
it,
is
buddy.
a great plethora of information.
Totes,
Yes.
ma goats.
Yes.
So check it all out over there. Stick around for the overtime coming up. And if you're
Overtime?
heading out right now, then we must say adieu. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you right back here
next week.
Yep. YabyTitles.com.
JB Titles.
YabyTitles.
JabyTitles.com.
We should have like a little jingle that plays.
By the way,
Free Milo. No.
Dylan, giving that review and helping you with your review.
Yeah.
That was awesome, dude. I got it. I was wanting to tell. I saw it
thanks.
playing on the reruns.
Yeah,
over there.
he was cute. Of course, I always get hate. I always get hate for using
What?
the kids. But
Wait.
Yeah, that's all right. It's okay.
F them. If you're giving Chris and his boy hate, you have no soul.
I used it sparingly too. It was like 3 minutes.
It was good. It was very good. I liked it a lot.
Lemon Journalism, manufacturing the best drama. That's good. That's good because it's like the best, you know. Sovereign Microsoft, not good, not good, not good. Dangerous Intelligence Games, I like that too.
That's good too.
Presidential Alt Facts.
I'm going to throw my support behind the Dangerous Intelligence Games. That's very
the
good.
Swedish Meatball. Leaks crawling faster. Intelligence leaks crawling faster. Critical infrastructure.
IKEA.
Manufacturing the best drama. And what was the Dangerous Intelligence Games? That's kind of the one I like.
I like that one too.
So, although
I'm okay
I could also do something with like something with the media, because we do open up with Mika saying that it's the media's job to control what everybody thinks, which is kind of a great clip.
I thought that got cut off. No, that was enter for sentence.
Yeah.
Oh man.
No, I didn't cut it. That was it.
Wow.
I'll see. I'll try to find the. See, I'll play the whole thing. Let's see. This one's the better quality one, I think, right here.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I hear. What Yamiche just said is what I hear from all the Trump supporters that I talk to who were Trump voters and are still Trump supporters. They go, yeah, you guys are going crazy. He's doing, what are you so surprised about? He's doing exactly what he said he's going to do.
Well, and I think that the dangerous, edges here are that he's trying to undermine the media, trying to make up his own facts, and it could be that while unemployment and the economy worsens, he could have undermined the messaging so much that he can actually control exactly what people think, and that is our job.
Yeah, if you look at the issues.
I feel like that's a misspeak. I don't know, man. That seems too blatant.
Pretty. Yeah, that's the whole. It
feels too blatant. But yeah.
All right. So, manufacturing the best drama is currently winning.
That one.
Dangerous Intelligence Games, which is the other one you like, is coming in at number 2.
I like number 2, but I will leave it to the voters if they vote. Yeah, I'll leave it to the voters. I'm a professional. I should speak in the mic.
So if it was manufacturing the best drama, would it be Trump? Would it be them? Who would it be? Who would be the still there?
Gosh, you could almost do 50-50 Trump and like press conference room of people.
Dangerous Intelligence Games. I would probably put like the CIA on it.
Yeah.
Control Alt Facts is working its way up the list.
Yeah, CIA, NSA. Yeah.
Control Alt Facts is kind of clever too. Geez, now I got the hiccups. But been drinking glasses of water and I end up with the hiccups. Control Alt Facts is now leading the pack.
I don't like Control Alt Facts.
No?
No.
People seem to like it.
I know. I'm just telling you.
Well, all right. Okay. All right. Chase overrides. So what do you like between those two? Do you like manufacturing the best drama?
I like Dangerous Intelligence Games.
Dangerous Intelligence Games.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think we're going to get more drama later.
Yeah, and I think this is about the intelligence community.
Because that's what we're really hearing about right now. And I think we're going to get some more increased drama down the road. I mean, it's only been 1 month in this presidency.
In dog years.
I know. Yeah.
Dangerous Intelligence Games. Although, I wonder what we would have been talking about if it was Hill Dog. I wonder what the big upset would have been.
It'd be the
oh, shit.
It'd be the gridlock in Congress.
Shit.
What?
I meant to mention Chinagate. So it turns out, I was too young to remember this, but when Bill Clinton got elected, there was this whole thing that's going on with Russians was going on with China and Bill Clinton.
Oh, yeah.
I guess there was like campaign financing scams and
I remember that.
collusion and communication with China, and it was called Chinagate. And I completely forgot about it until just recently. I wasn't able to find any great clips on it, but I was just going to bring it up as a
talking point.
Yeah, just something for people to look into.
Yeah.
So there you go. For those of you that are watching the live stream, go look into Chinagate. History repeats itself. This is what the Republicans, just so the way the Democrats are going after Trump now, the Republicans went after Bill for Chinagate. It's the same shit.
Rinse, repeat.
Same shit, Chase. Different day. All right, chat room.
Chat room, have a great one.
We're going to go with not manufacturing the best drama. How did I do that? I was too busy chatting. Because you wanted dangerous intelligence games, right? Yes.
Yes, that's. I think that's the good title.
Oh man, you know what? You should go get some Chinese food or something for me. For yourself. I mean, get it for you, but do it on behalf
I'm on a
of
restrictive diet.
Oh,
I've lost 16 pounds.
Really? Well, congratulations.
Thanks, man.
So no Chinese food in that, huh?
No, that's too much.
Rough.
Yeah, unless I just stick with like broccoli beef or something.
Oh, it's the carbs, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll do it to you.
Yeah, carbs and calories.
Yeah. All right. Good, Chase. Good for you. Good for you. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight.
All right. You guys have a great week. And actually, try to, after you listen to the show, unplug for a bit.
Just don't pay attention to the news. Wait for us. This is like, seriously, this is a public service thing we do for you, so you don't have to go insane.
I tell you what, Chris, I will not pay attention to the news tomorrow.
We watch the news so they don't have to.
That's right.
Goodbye, everybody.
Good night.